This is a compilation video containing all of the origins that I've created videos on that work for 1.16.5. You can find all these mods in the Origins Discord server using a link down below by searching the name of the mod itself. Either way, enjoy this mega compilation. A speedrunner based origin that is more meant to be a joke themed around a certain speedrunner that we all know and love in the YouTube community. A true speedrunner at heart, you are sure to be moving fast. Good luck getting this new speedrunning record though. Either way, let's move on into showcasing the abilities. Starting off with the speedrunner ability, you can build up tremendous amounts of speed by sprinting. This will make you move and attack faster, but when you're not sprinting, it will run out extraordinarily fast. So essentially the idea behind this one, as you sprint along, a bar will slowly fill up until it hits its max point, and until you stop sprinting, which in order for you to stop sprinting, in order for it to start to move back down, all it takes is a split moment where you're no longer sprinting, and then it will have to fall all the way back down to the bottom of the bar before it starts to build back up again, regardless if you immediately start sprinting again. Overall, at a certain point there becomes a point where it's just extraordinarily hard to keep in control of how you're moving, whether you're jumping up blocks correctly or not, and any other things like that, and there will be a certain point in time when you're just running way too fast that you knock into something accidentally and your speed will fall right back down. Overall, by my brief playing around with this ability on its own, I already enjoy this origin so far. Despite the fact it's meant to be a joke origin, it's actually fairly good. Anyway, moving on to the next ability that gets built in with this speedrunner one is the one called Cheetah. If you have enough speed and velocity built up, you can actually phase right through blocks. Essentially speaking, if you can control your speed for a long enough period of time that you can build up your bar enough, you'll start phasing through blocks instead of having to worry about jumping over them in order to keep your momentum going. The next ability is the backwards long jump. You can build up your velocity by pressing the primary action key and letting it go in a backwards long jump with the secondary action key. Essentially speaking, you just need to hit your primary ability button 5 different times. You don't hold it, you just press it 5 times to build up the bar to full, then you press your secondary key button and you go flying backwards. It's not just a small jump backwards, it is flinging yourself backwards at a very far rate. Anyway, moving on to the next ability, you've got the fast food ability. Your stomach is so fast that you don't actually get hungry as quickly as normal. This really sounds completely and utter opposite to what you would think. You would expect a slow stomach to mean that you don't get hungry as quickly. A fast stomach would process food quick enough that you have to eat more quicker, but that's besides the point, I guess. It's pretty understandable at this point, as I don't need to show it off. I'll just continue to use that brilliant gameplay from the previous one. The next ability is fast feet. You are too fast to actually take any form of fall damage. Essentially speaking, it's way overpowered, and considering the fact that phasing through walls will often drop you into big cave areas, taking no fall damage is kind of useful with that ability, to be honest. Personally speaking, if you didn't have immunity to fall damage, it would actually take away a lot of the fun that this origin has within it, so it does make sense that it goes, even if it does make it a bit more broken than what it already is. Anyhow, moving into the cons, you've got undefendable. Wearing armor would slow you down way too much, meaning that you are unable to wear armor whatsoever, meaning that you have no armor at all. And last but not least, broken values. Your health is reduced to a mere 3 hearts. So by all means, this Origins is definitely a broken, overpowered, unbalanced mess, but in my honest opinion, out of all the overpowered ones that I have covered, this one by far is probably the most fun I've had playing around with an overpowered one. Just the sheer joy of running around at supersonic speed and then just phasing through the world it's like nothing else, to be honest. The Herobrine Origin, yes, it was fun because you could fly, you could explode shit, you're pretty much immune to anything, but that loses its charm pretty damn quickly. Same with the Godborne Origin and many of the other origins I've covered on my channel already, but this one I do highly recommend if you just want to have a fun in a single player world for a little while. If you just want an origin that you can take and piss around with and do stupid things with, I definitely recommend that you check this one out. Give it a download, give it a play. It's overpowered, it's unbalanced, but it is a fun time for anyone to play through. It's just amazing. So of course, this is the idea from Disputed Starlight on Reddit, the original Reddit post, which I've actually talked about in its own separate video ages ago. This of course is going to require the Paku mod, which is basically that mod that allows you to shrink and grow as an origin in those type of manners. And right through the description, flying from the pages of mythology, the Phoenix is a legendary firebird that can never truly die. Either way, moving on to the abilities, you've got Radiant Call. Fully heals every player and mob within a 12 block radius, triggers automatically every 5 minutes. This took like 5 minutes of waiting around in order to have this be shown off, but essentially speaking, I just got myself a dog pet, then I hit it a few times. Yes, I hit the dog, don't worry about it. So you can actually visibly see that the dog's health is low by the tail being in the ground. And as we can see after the ability activates, which you can see by the long bar at the bottom, particles go around you and the dog's tail is now pointing up because it activated. Ultimately, I feel like this is a good idea because not only does it heal every mob around you, it heals anything within your radius, meaning it doesn't matter if you're fighting against it or not, it heals everything and may potentially screw you over a little bit. Helios Blessing. When under direct sunlight, you receive a speed boost on land and in the air. This one's pretty self-explanatory and overall is a pretty useful one considering that you just have a slight speed boost while at state time. Moving on to the next one, you've got Flight. You have Fiery Wings, which is only available in your normal form, which is where you start to get to know why this is a cool Phoenix origin. Because not only do you have Elytra wings, they are also colored to be looks of like some form of fire, as you can see in the clip here. Your primary ability in your normal form is the Ascent ability. You have the ability to launch yourself into the air, but it's only again available in the normal form. It's practically a similar effect to what the Elytrian has as its main ability. It's just really that one, just a little bit different. I honestly like the little aesthetic addition to the actual bar, how it's got a tricolor to it, how it starts off as red, then it goes to orange, then to yellow as it fills up, which I feel like is just a really cool little detail the creator added. Moving on, we've got the Gliding ability, which you gain slow falling and jump boost, which is only available in the reborn form. Essentially speaking, the two forms go as you lose your full health bar in one form, you then shrink in size and lose your wings and lose the ability to fly normally, but you can now just slow fall and jump a little higher. Moving on into the Rebirth ability, in your normal form you have 5 hearts and can use the Flight and Ascend abilities. If you lose all 5 hearts, you then shrink towards your reborn form. This form is 1 block tall and can use Glide and only has 3 total hearts. You return upon normal upon rejuvenation or death. Essentially speaking, it's quite similar to the Slimekin on how it shrinks to a smaller size when you take enough damage to kill your entire health bar, but instead you don't actually get any proper bonus health and it only works one time over, but then you will grow back again to normal when it comes to the Sunrise, which is the Rejuvenation ability. At Sunrise, if you're in the reborn form, you'll return to the normal form. Moving on to your cons, first off, you have Fiery Death. When you die, your body sets the ground upon fire. Essentially speaking, you might lose some of your items if you do die. If you die in your reborn form, it will just set everywhere around you on fire, burning any items within the vicinity. But as we know of Minecraft, when you do die, you tend to pop, so not all items are going to get caught in this fire, as it only like surrounds like a couple of blocks directly at your death spot. Anyhow, next up you got Golden Diet. All foods restore very little hunger and saturation except for golden foods, which function like normal food normally does. Essentially speaking, golden carrots and golden apples are your best source of food as a Phoenix. It's also going to be the most difficult source of food to get, so it's one of its own things there, the food source. Hey, at least you can still use golden apples, I guess. Water weakness, you have decreased speed in water. Essentially speaking, it really doesn't affect you that much throughout the day. Pretty much just removes the speed buff you get from being in the sun, but if you do so at night time, you'll get given a slowness debuff instead, so that's always something to look out for. And last but not least, you have Brittle Bones. You take more damage from falling as well as flying into blocks, essentially just more kinetic damage overall. In-game itself, it's actually called the Technoblade Origin, but we're going to continue to call it the Blood God Origin just for the sake of it. But anyway, running through the description, you are Technoblade, the Supreme Warrior. All you do is fight and farm potatoes. Anyhow, without further ado, let's get into the video. Oh, and just a brief reminder, this is kind of similar to the Speedrunner Origin where it's like meant to be a joke and OP, but running through it, we've got fall immunity, you've got no fall damage whatsoever, and also fire immunity, you take no fire damage whatsoever. Either way, moving to the next ability, you've got the Axe of Peace. You do more damage overall with axes. Whilst yes, this does overall fit the character that Technoblade plays in the Dream SMP, it doesn't quite fit how Technoblade fights his battles. He's more of a sword person in 1.8 rather than playing around with axe and crits in 1.17/16/15. Overall, the brilliance behind this, you can actually use stone axes to kill piglin brutes with absolute ease, and honestly it makes axes that much more fun to use. That added in with the other bonus that we'll talk about in a moment, the axes are overall pretty good with this bonus damage. Anyhow, moving moving on to the next ability, you've got Potato King. Eating potatoes will give you effects. Raw potato equals speed 2, and baked potato equals strength 2. Poisonous potato will give you resistance 2. Overall, this plays really well into the entire potato farming thing that Technoblade did for a solid year in the Skyblock stuff. But the one little bit of a problem that I feel like we have here is just the poisonous potato getting an actual use, because the main reason it exists is to be an absolutely useless item, but hey, I guess we can give it resistance 3 when you eat it as Technoblade, eh? Anyway, moving into the next ability, we've got Technoplane. You can fly. Because of course you can. Your Technoblade, you have the ability to do the Technoplane. Essentially speaking, if you press your secondary ability key, you'll activate your ability to fly, and essentially speaking, it just gives you the ability to swim in the air. That's what it looks like. You don't actually have any form of elytra or any form of wings. You actually have legitimate flight by swimming through the air, technically speaking. Anyway, moving on to the next ability. Oh, Dream. If Techno was to be in a manhunt, he would have to be fast and strong, granting you permanent strength and speed. I mean, if you read the tin, you get exactly what you want. And funny thing about this, if you do use the Potato King stuff that gives you speed 2 and strength 2, it actually stacks up to be speed 3 and strength 3. So overall, Potato King's kind of a bit misleading considering the fact that the O Dream ability actually gives you more of that. So I don't know, it's up to you how you think about that one. Anyhow, moving on to your overall neutral ability, this is your primary ability. It's called the Double-Edged Axe. You do a secret technique where you poison yourself heavily, meaning that you'll go all the way down to half a heart of health, but you do get a drastic boost in strength to 255. Overall, this ability is definitely a bit crazy, and I honestly would personally put it into a positive thing because it's not all negative. I mean, you do get poison 4, which immediately takes you down to half a heart, and you will always have that poison as long as you have that strength bonus, and it also gives you speed as well as a massive haste boost, meaning that overall it's a really powerful ability and is really useful in most situations. You just gotta be careful you don't get hit, but overall you're going to be super fast, you're going to have super strength, and you can hit really damn fast and still do stupid amount of damage. So overall, I don't think it matters that much, that half a heart difference, but I guess that's in your opinion on what you think of that one. Either way, moving on to the cons, you've got claustrophobia. You cannot be in closed little spaces. Essentially speaking, a brief overview of this, if you're underneath an area where there's less than 3 blocks above you, essentially speaking, if you have a roof that's 3 blocks above you, 2 blocks above you, or you're in a 1 block high area, you're going to get a brief amount of weakness and slowness added in that slowly climbs up over time to around to max out at 3 minutes before it stops climbing up. If you're in an area where there's 4 blocks worth of room height, you won't get given this, and it doesn't matter how close the walls are around you on the sides, it just matters if there's 2 blocks above your head to give you the ability or not. And moving into the other con, fresh air. You must be high up to actually sleep. Essentially speaking, kind of similar to how the Avian has to be up around 80 blocks in the sky in order to actually be able to sleep in a bed. It same kind of applies to the Blood God Origin here. So we got Cursed and Bind. Your soul is forever bound to your former armor, which is you start off with iron armor, but as we go through a little later in this origin, you'll understand that it can be upgraded to a different set of armor. Moving on, we've got Curse. You may inflict a curse to all entities in a 7 block radius every 2 minutes. You are also immune to these effects yourself. In old teachings, when you were alive, you were a skilled soldier, and therefore you still possess the abilities that increase your melee attack damage by around 4. So what we can gather from just the pros themselves, you start off with a set of iron armor already pre-attached to your body, but you cannot remove it, meaning that you can't exactly enchant it yourself. You've also got the ability to curse other people, and you've also got a bonus melee attack damage overall as well. Running through the neutral abilities, vital energy. You can't feed on normal food, however, you can actually gain energy by killing other entities and absorbing their vital energy. Which first off, I feel like is just an immediately good counter towards your melee buff, because essentially speaking, you're unable to eat normal food and you therefore must be killing people in order to feed yourself. And the other neutral ability is just the fact that your skin is translucent, which really is just more of a visual thing and makes you slightly invisible, but your armor still exists, so it really doesn't change too much, but it's something that's still there nevertheless. Either way, moving on to your cons, you've got Load Carrier. Be it because of your sorrows or the heavy armor that your spirit carries, you're much slower than the average Minecraft player. As well as uncomfortable, you are unable to handle a bow or a crossbow, therefore therefore mean that you are unable to use it in combat and you are only specialized in melee combat. Which, if the vital energy nerf doesn't affect you or believe it counteracts the old teachings buff, Uncomfortable should also convince you that, hey, this melee boost is not too broken because you lose the ability to do ranged attacks overall. Now moving on to the upgrade. Upon coming in contact with ancient debris, you will evolve into the cursed Neverite armor and you will also gain a new ability. This new ability is called Spirit State. You may trigger a state of being in a spirited state, during which you can phase through walls, be invisible, and also fly. If you go past half a minute or 30 seconds without exiting this state though, you will instantly disintegrate as your soul will corrupt after using so much power. Either way, moving on to the review section. From my time with playing around with this, I can definitely say that this slowness that you get with this is definitely really annoying and can get really painful real fast, but there is still a way to go around it by sprint jumping. But of course that's going to consume your hunger far faster, but it also removes the ability to do the age-old 2-block high sprint jumping because you only are at normal speed when you're in the air. The moment you touch the ground, you immediately slow right back down. But I feel like that's really good for balancing reasons by having the slowness only affect you when you're walking normally but not have it on all the time, so there's at least a way to deal with it and not become too annoying. It also is a bit, I feel like it should definitely be changed slightly that you require a few more Nether debris in order to actually upgrade to full Netherite armor by, like, let's say 5 Netherite debris, because the second you put one in your inventory, you immediately have full Netherite gear. Granted, you are unable to enchant it whatsoever, but it still is a bit of a weird thing there. I feel like it should definitely be changed in that way. Another side note, your flying ability, after 30 seconds it kills you, but you still retain the Netherite armor that you had previously despite the fact that you lose all your other items. I feel like that maybe in those cases it should be, let's say, maybe you lose your armor until you pick up your previous gear. Maybe, I'm not 100% sure on that one because it could get a bit annoying at a point where you have to continuously lose your Netherite armor. But then again, I feel like it should be at least something to counteract the fact that you only require one Netherite debris in order to get the Netherite armor. The spirit ability is definitely a really cool aspect of this. It's essentially just spectator mode, but you're still in survival and you can only spend 30 seconds in there, as well as the fact that the moment you turn it off, you also have to wait for the time length that you spent in that mode for it to cool back down. So let's say you spend 28 seconds in that mode, you have to wait 28 seconds before you can go back into that mode, back to where it's at its fresh cooldown. Otherwise, you're just going to be going off of wherever it's left at when it's cooling down. As well as the curse ability does a variety of different things. It sometimes applies weakness, sometimes withering, and it supplies a few different types of curses, which I feel like is a really cool part of it as well. Through the mod known as Too Many Origins, which is a mod expansion based on the Origins mod, adding 3 new different origins to the game, all 3 of which being some really intriguing and cool origins in general. Starting off with an origin based upon the Wither archetype in Minecraft, we have the Withered Origin. Running through the pros of this origin, you would inflict the Wither effect upon melee based attacks to whatever entity you so hit. You always have 1 extra level of soul speed, meaning you only need soul speed 2 on your boots to have maximum soul speed. You are immune to projectile attacks when your health is at half of the maximum amount, or less. And you're also completely immune to the Wither effect. The cons to this ability is that you start the game within the Nether, and overworld crops that are planted by you are unable to grow. Overall, after playing around with this origin for a little bit, I believe this origin's all-around overall balance, as automatically 2 of the perks that you get are only going to be useful in very specific situations, as well as the 3rd ability just disables any form of projectiles hitting you and actually doing anything, whilst the Wither ability gives you the ability to poison anyone with Wither for a temporary amount of time. That one is overall the only thing that is useful in almost all situations. Either way, moving on to the Dragonborn Origin. Running through the perks of the Dragonborn Origin, we start off with the ability to breathe dragon fireballs. You also have the ability to light up furnaces and campfires. As well as you have 2 more hearts than the regular Minecraft player, and you do not take any knockback damage. But to coincide with that, you also take more projectile damage, arrow damage, and trident damage, etc. As well as you can only eat meat. After playing around with this one for a bit, this one was also a spot of fun overall. And when you light up a furnace using your ability, it roughly has the length of the lava bucket, meaning you can smelt a very decent amount of items before you run out of burnt fuel in your furnace. Moving on to the Hiskin, you have the ability to rocket jump when looking at a block or an entity. Pretty much wherever you're looking will direct the rocket and explosion in that direction. You are also completely immune to explosion damage, but that can't save you if you, let's say, fall from a high distance from that explosion. And you also become charged when hit by lightning, allowing you to pretty much repeat what a charged creeper would do for their explosion, which is pretty decent overall. The cons of this is you have overall slightly less movement speed than the average Minecraft player, as well as you receive a stacking debuff of slowness and weakness when near cats or ocelots. Overall, the Hiskin is very just meant to be more of a fun-based origin. You don't have too many game-altering abilities and disabilities within the origin, but more so abilities to allow you to have a lot more fun within the mod itself. Allowing yourself to bounce around like it's nobody's business, as well as flying about. If you land in water, you can live through that, and have just general all-over fun with explosives. Showcasing a new Origins mod that goes through and adds in all the races from Breath of the Wild as Origin classes that you can use in Minecraft. So if you've ever wanted to use any of the form of Breath of the Wild classes in a different way other than just using actual mods, instead of just having something that slightly alters the game for you, here's a new way to do it. Anyway, in this video I'm going to be going through it in order, going through showing off all the classes, then telling you how to install it right at the end of this video, how to find it, install it, and do all those bits and pieces. So of course, going through the first origin that you'll be greeted to is the Zora Origin. From the Breath of the Wild Origins pack, being a Zora is pretty cool. You can live both in water a lot and on land. Either way, running through the perks that you get with this class, you've got Sleek Body. Being a Zora means you can swim really fast because you've got a far sleeker fish-like body, aka you can swim far faster in water than the average Minecraft player. Underwater vision, you can see further underwater, and unlike the normal Minecraft player which has a very big vision debuff underwater, in water you can see completely normally. Water breathing, being a Zora allows you to breathe both in water and on land. Water dash, you are able to launch yourself in any direction while you're in the water using your ability. You've also got dry skin. Your skin is so dry that if you even think of going near a desert, you will set on fire. And to coincide with that, you also have a weakness to fire where you take more damage to fire than the average Minecraft player, and as well as that, you're a clumsy sword user, so you're not really good at using swords, but don't worry, axes and bows are still just as good as normal. Overall, this ability set, it seems to be just like more of a slightly altered Merling in comparison to the average Merling that gives you slightly better abilities, meaning that you can also breathe on land, but fire biomes do hurt a lot more in comparison to what they do to the average Merling. Either way, moving on to the Goron base origin, Gorons are a strong race that live in the mountains. For going through the perks and disadvantages you get with this origin, you are very durable and you can take a real beating. Goron arms, your arms are so strong that you can break a natural stone at breakneck speeds. Death Mountain resistance, since your ancestors lived on the Death Mountain, you are used to the heat and can survive in lava. Ball form, you can press G to turn into a ball, you move much faster but at the cost of not being able to mine or do combat. Heavy body, your heaviness weighs you down and you become very slow. Large appetite, you exhaust much quicker than the average Minecraft player, thus requiring you to eat more. And sedimentary rock, being a rock creature doesn't fare well in an ocean environment. Going into water will start to corrode your body. Either way, moving on to the next race that's been converted into an origin, we have the Rito Origin. Being half Rito is pretty nice. Also, I wonder, does that mean your big bird is your cousin? Either way, moving on to the pros and cons of this origin, you've got Gliding Master. You have a pair of wings. Gliding is now real easy for you. Rivali's Gale is now ready. Essentially, you're able to jump up, quite similar to how the Elytrian Origin works. Master Marksman, your bow does a lot more damage than normal. 2 arrows will kill an unarmored person in comparison to the average. Your feathers are also okay in the snow, and you also can go really fast in the snow using snow speed. Carnivore, your diet is restricted to meat. You cannot eat vegetables whatsoever. Feathery body, your feathers aren't all good. You will burn up in warm biomes. Fresh air, when sleeping, your bed needs to be at an altitude of at least 86 blocks so you can breathe fresh air. Either way, moving on to the Gerudo Origin. Gerudos are fierce warriors that have grown accustomed to the desert. Running through the perks of this origin, you've got the Sword Master class ability. Being really proficient with the sword means that you do a lot more damage with them than the average Minecraft player. Sand speed, you are much more used to the desert and can travel through them a lot quicker than the average Minecraft player. Ubos's Fury is now ready to be used. You shock everyone within 10 blocks with lightning. Tall advantage, since you're a bit taller as a Gerudo, you can also reach a bit further as a Gerudo. Too warm, you get too warm and stuffy in armor that is better than chainmail. Nighttime weakness, as a Gerudo, the sun is very bright, and as you've grown accustomed to the light, you just are not as strong during the night time. And shivering, you take any damage in any snow biome. Moving on to the Sheikah Origin, Sheikhas are sleek ninja-like warriors. You know you want to be a ninja. Running through the perks and cons of this origin, you got now you see me, now you don't. If you press your secondary keybind, you'll go straight up invisible. It will come at a cost though. While you're invisible, you'll have half your normal health. Teleport behind you. Press G to instantly teleport wherever you're looking. No Ender Pearl necessary. Parkour warrior, you are able to jump 2 blocks high as a result of your ninja training. Agile, you move pretty fast now as well. Spaghetti arms, you may be a ninja, but labor isn't your strong suit. Mining is very hard as you're unable to mine large veins of stone in a short succession. Stealth armor, in order to be stealthy, you cannot be wearing hard, stiff, or clunky armor. And Guardian Stalker, being half Guardian has its benefits. You are half robot. Guardian Laser, you can shoot a powerful laser. Cue the Guardian music. 6-legged, having 6 legs mean you can move really quickly to chase down your foes. Giant Ancient Core, being a Guardian means you have a lot of health, double the health of a normal Minecraft player in fact. Guardian Vision, you can see everyone and everything close to you, even if they're behind a wall. Rusty Body, since you're made of metal, rust is a real issue. Do not try going into water. Melty Bottle, you also are made of, well, metal, so you can melt really fast going into hot spaces and lava especially. Short Circuit Ball, being a machine, you short circuit really easily so you don't get struck by lightning. Made by you guys, by a guy named Drizzo, which is a werewolf based origin mod that he's made here today. So okay, starting off from the beginning, we've got at nighttime you gain strength and speed boost. Essentially at nighttime you'll transform into a werewolf, which is not only a werewolf is going to be 3 blocks tall instead of the 2 blocks, you're also going to have strength and speed boost at nighttime as well, meaning that you can pretty much 1 to 2 hit a majority of mobs by default, as well as the fact that is your primary ability at nighttime has the ability to toggle night vision on and off, and your secondary ability will have a small pounce with a small cooldown. Also in this werewolf form, you take no fall damage whatsoever, and raw mutton gives more bars of food than they would normally do. To also confide with that, tame wolves that you have also have a damage boost at nighttime while you're in your werewolf form, and rotten flesh and spider eyes do not actually affect you whatsoever when you eat them. But the overall buffs or disabilities you have to go with that is you can only eat meat while in both forms, and you also have 2 less hearts than the average Minecraft player, again both forms, and you can only wear iron armor as your maximum tier of armor. You can wear anything below hand, but nothing higher than iron. Now the most recent update of this version of the Werewolf Origins allows you to actually have 2 different forms, where you have human throughout the day and wolf at the night time frame. Now essentially speaking, some of the disadvantages do carry over to the daytime, as well as some of the buffs. For example, eating raw mutton will still give you more hunger in the daytime when you're in your normal human form, but you still also have overall less health. Other things that have been added in is that the wolf form can actually eat bones in order to get 2 more hunger bars, and the wolf form is big and grey in comparison to normal. In the human form, you can actually scavenge for bones to eat as a wolf form to use to tame as many foxes as you possibly can as well, by the use of your primary ability, which will be changed when you go into the wolf form. form. In human form, you can also bite using your secondary ability to get some health back from whatever mob you're biting. Continuing on, some of the other changes have been that raw mutton now works in both forms, as I've already previously mentioned. Same with the fact that both forms prefer raw meat instead of the normal other foods, bits and pieces. Both forms have 2 less hearts, both forms can only wear max iron, and the form human can eat other stuff other than meat, but will also get nausea, but then that ability also got removed in the 1.4 version of this origin. Essentially speaking, the idea behind this one is to make a fun yet overpowered origin. So essentially they want to make it overpowered, but you want to still be able to have fun with it, so this one's made to be a mixture of fun and overpoweredness. Anyhow, this origin comes from the Origins Discord server from a user called Archangel Ghost. It's Ghostborn Origin, Godborne. Being born of the wind, you can fly and dash around like a wind, and being a warrior of Olympus, also you are stronger, but you're a special one because the gods have you a gift that no other being has had in centuries. Running through the abilities, you've got Warrior's Wrath. By pressing the primary key, you activate the power that you were gifted by the god of combat. Titan Smash. While Warrior's Wrath is active, you can hit harder with anything that's in your hand. This ability was named Titan Smash by the previous users of Warrior's Wrath. Super Leap. While Warrior's Wrath is active, by pressing the secondary key, you dash forward while increasing your strength to land a heavy hitting blow. Warrior's Enhancement. While Warrior's Wrath is active, you can move faster because it enhances your physical abilities. Anti-fall. You take no fall damage no matter how high you fall from. Warrior's Punch. Due to having Warrior's Wrath, you do more damage with your fist on top of the extra strength. Warrior's Training. Because of your train, you now have extra hearts in comparison to the average Minecraft player, around 4. Electric Community. You're immune to lightning damage. And Warrior's Guard. Due to how you had to train using the Warrior's Wrath, your resolve is higher, making you have more resistance to attacks because you have some natural armor, around 4 bars of it. Now, going off of just the positive abilities itself, you can already see that this is definitely a very potent based origin, but it also heavily relies on just your main key ability that gives you a majority of your benefits when it comes down to it. Either way, we move on to our neutral abilities. First off, you've got Godborne's Rage. You can strike entities with lightning if you hit them while crouched, but it also has a 30-second cooldown. Remember, it gets rid of all items of what it kills, whatever you hit. Essentially speaking, don't use it on a fellow player if you don't want to burn their items away. It's kind of got the same problem that the Starborn character had originally in its original origin form, where when it kills anyone, the lightning strike that comes down to kill them will also destroy any items of theirs. Buff neutral ability. Having Warrior's Wrath has made you a lot stronger, so your muscle mass has made you just a little bit taller than the average Minecraft player. Lightning Particles. Due to having Warrior's Wrath, your energy levels are highly increased to a level your body cannot fully contain, so in order to contain it all, it turns into lightning that courses around your body and through your veins. Moving on to your negative abilities, you've got more hunger. Due to how much energy Warrior's Wrath uses, you also are hungrier far more normal than the average Minecraft player, meaning you burn through your hunger bar faster. And also energy overload. You explode energy when you die. Essentially speaking, it's kind of like an explosion thing, similar to how the Starborn Origin works when you die and things along those lines. One of the things I noticed right after the bat when playing around with this origin is how buggy it actually is. Sometimes when you press your secondary or your main ability button, nothing actually happens. But if you get over the bugginess of the actual origin itself, it's definitely a bit of fun. Overall, this was built off of the back of the Starborn Origin, hence the reason why it's got the same Starborn icon, as well as the fact that it says in the data pack description itself that it adds in the Starborn Origin. It's essentially just a better version of that. When you die, you get what is essentially a mixture between a full creeper explosion and a lightning creep, a charged creeper explosion, essentially speaking. Which this big thing that comes with that is, as always, if you do die holding items on you, anything that you had will get destroyed because, well, the charged creeper will blow up the items into them 9 times out of 10. Not always, there's going to be occasions where that doesn't happen, because how this tend to work is it spawns a charged creeper or a normal creeper and immediately makes it explode. Essentially speaking, if you can get over the bugginess of the actual origin data pack itself, it is definitely a whole lot of fun to play around with, and it's definitely overpowered, but again, it's still a fun one to do because it's not too overpowered. So this is a data pack made by Drizzo, the guy who made the Shapeshifter one that we looked at the other day, and also made by Rin Caillou, who is also participating in this one, making use of a resource pack made by Just Hang Here, or Just Orange Here. Essentially, both the data pack as well as the extra resource pack that they use in this data pack, I will leave a download linked in the description below, but I do always recommend you go check out the Origins Discord server and give them a bit of love as well, as it's always a good way to give back to the people that actually make this stuff and not just me. Either way, moving on to the abilities, you've got to start off with your beneficial abilities. You've got your 2 primary abilities. You can speed up time with your primary ability, and you can also slow down time with your secondary ability. You can also change day and night with a blaze rod and a stick. You can also stop all time except for yourself for 10 seconds with a clock. You cannot attack during the time stop though. You can also time travel, warp dimensions with your scroll button on your mouse, clicking it, and you will not die from a void. It will teleport you to the surface instead. You also have a certain particle effect that allows you to emit the particles that enchanting tables do when they summon things from the bookshelves. Now, essentially speaking, you cannot see it yourself, but other players in a server can actually see you emitting these particles, so overall it just leads to a really cool effect that just shows them, hey, you're the time turner, don't mess with you. And so far, of these bonus abilities, these buff type things, essentially speaking, is a really cool idea. The ability to just pause time, fast forward, slow down time at any point in time you want, and just play around with time is just a beautiful, really cool concept. Either way, moving on to the negatives, you cannot use shields, bows, crossbows, or ender pearls. Essentially speaking, in the benefit of getting all these time turn abilities, you lose some very drastic things. First off, you lose the ability to defend yourself from things. You just have to take the damage or avoid it. You cannot shoot things with your crossbows or bows anymore, and you cannot use ender pearls to teleport anywhere because, well, you can already pause time. So essentially speaking, you can just move ahead when time's paused anyhow, and making a clock isn't too bad either. You just need 4 gold and some redstone. There you are, you can pause time for a few moments. You cannot sleep either. Essentially speaking, that people can sleep in a multiplayer world without you having a need to sleep, but you can't sleep personally yourself. There is no specifications on whether phantoms will still come after you after a couple of days of you not sleeping or not, so that might be its own thing. You also exhaust quicker than normal, which just means you lose hunger faster than others. In closed spaces, you also get weakness and slowness, so don't hang around in like these closed in areas too much. I would assume that this also includes your own buildings and houses that you make, that being in them also will lead you to get slowness and weakness temporarily until you move away from there. And you also have 3 less hearts than normal human Minecraft players. Essentially speaking, your lack of a shield means that you're going to be taking more damage more often, and you have less health to take that damage with, so you really got to play your time smart. Now, of course, that was the base version of it that goes through all the actual original abilities, but there is another variant of this that I'll be leaving a link to in the description down below as the new one, not the other one that I've just went over, that just adds in a few little changes. These are 2 bug fixes as well as a new ability that was added in to just be overall more beneficial towards you. First off, it fixed a bug with mobs being able to attack during the time stop, as well as it fixed a bug with being able to use time slow and stop at the exact same time. But it also adds in the slow falling ability, which lasts 10 seconds, to the time travel ability. Now overall, this is a really fun origin to play around with. The time stopping and all the time turning ability just leads to a bunch of fun shenanigans that will happen in any form of server or just on your own playing around. Now, how do you get this fun for yourself? Now, essentially speaking, I will have download links for both the resource pack and the original data pack itself in the description down below, but if you want to go to the Origins Discord server to grab this for yourself right off the original source, then once you're in the Origins Discord server, just search up this term here in order to find it, and you can either go to the one by Kyron U or other things along those lines. Essentially speaking, it's pretty much there, as well as the fact that one of the original posts also links directly back to the original resource post you can go get for yourself as well. Now, of course, this is called the Fallen Angel. Disclaimer, this origin is built off of the Rambles Discord's Thestral version 2 origin, so essentially speaking, as is with the Godborne Origin, it's built off the back of someone else's origin, which I still find to be the coolest thing about the origin stuff. The fact that you can use someone else's origin and build up your own variant of it, add new abilities and change it up a bit using someone else's pre-built code network is really cool in this entire community. Either way, running through the perks, you've got Bloodthirsty. Because of your demonic nature, you also have a permanent strength. You got Demonic Flight. After being killed, your wings were sliced off, but having been rebirthed, you now have proper demonic wings. Fall Immunity, no fall go bruh. Misc Skin, death still lingers on you, slightly pigmenting and making your skin translucent. The Boys, you became close friends with the most undead mobs in Eternal Torture Lounge in Hell, making all undead mobs neutral towards you, of course meaning that they won't attack you unless provoked by you. You've also got Thick Skin. You've been made tough with all that torture, gaining a few extra armor points in bonus for that. Rehabilitation, due to your transformation, you've gained back 3 of your hearts. Swift Feet, your strong feet have made you faster. Deadly Expulsion, your primary ability, you can now launch extremely far due to your force conditioning in Hell, forming a withering dust cloud as you launch. And Deadshot, your secondary ability you can use to shoot skulls of your withered allies. The neutral abilities that come with this, you've got Trauma. The feel of fire brings you back to your supposed to be torture in Hell, so you take more damage from the fire. Neglect, there was no field in hell, so you get given a large appetite. Essentially speaking, your hunger will burn through a lot quicker than normal. The heck is a shield? Bro, you're a freaking ghost horse. Essentially speaking, you can't use a shield, but this would be later overturned in a later version of this, which we'll go over in a brief moment. Old habits. You were once a horse, making you rideable. Hydrophobia, water seeps through your skin, burning you. And deja vu, the thought of being back in that horrid place still haunts you, so you don't like to be under roofs for too long, being a little slower in such cases. Just in this part alone, we see by far the most interesting set of negative abilities to come with. Now, first off, you can't really touch fire because it'll do a lot more damage than normal to you, but at the same time, you also can't touch water because that will also burn you, pretty much making it so that fire and water is bad for you regardless of anything. Overall, kind of similar in how the B Origin works nowadays, or the Enderian Origin works, meaning that you just can't touch any liquids because it hurts a lot more than what it should. But essentially speaking, that isn't too bad of a thing. Moving on to the 0.2 version of it, which just adds in a few abilities, we've got Carnivore. You are so used to eating hell's bunnies and other meats in the underworld that anything else is inedible towards you. Essentially speaking, you can only eat meat. That is a very, very weird descriptive way of going over it, but essentially speaking, you're a carnivore, you can only eat meat. You are glowing. Because of your demonic presence, you're consistently glowing, making it easy for people to find you. Essentially speaking, do you know that the spectral arrows, and when you hit something it glows on the map? Essentially speaking, it's going to be doing that all the time on you, regardless if you've been hit one of those arrows recently or not. And then the other change was adding back fragile, essentially 7 hearts, instead of the normal max amount of hearts you normally have. Anyway, version 0.3 has strong fist, which means you are very strong, giving you haste naturally as well. Essentially speaking, this is a buff in comparison to what the last one was a nerf, because it keeps going to balancing of back and forth, not exactly balancing correctly, and people just want it slightly changed. In this video today, I'm going to be showing off a Vexborn based origin, essentially an origin based off of the Vex mob in Minecraft. I want to actually start exploring more origins that are based off of the mobs in Minecraft for a bit, because you know there's a lot of cool custom origins based off of some really cool unique concepts, but I also just like going back to the basic ones that are based off of mobs in the Minecraft game, because they're also cool at the same time. Just the different ideas that people can have on how to interpret these mobs into actual powers and abilities you can use as a Minecraft player. As always with the format of this video, we go through and showcase the origin first and give my opinion on and what I think of it after playing for about half an hour with it, and then I tell you exactly how and where to get it, and then also how to actually install it into your Minecraft folder, as a lot of people don't quite know how to do it because it's a data pack, but most of the time these data packs are a little bit weirder. Anyhow, let's actually get into the Vexborn based origin. Running through the perks of it, it's essentially this guy's first ever published data pack, and he wants us to enjoy it. I know I read that message directly as it is, don't at me about it, I'm just doing my job. Jokes out of the way, running through the perks of this origin, you've got Vex Wings. Essentially you can fly freely by holding the space button, essentially removing your ability to jump. You've also got Vex Sense. When you hit a mob, it will have a glowing effect for around 5 cents, kind of similar to how a spectral arrow makes a mob glow if you hit them with the spectral arrow, kind of like that one. Featherweight, you also fall slowly unless you're crouching. Essentially speaking, you're light, you fall slow, you know, slow falling, but you can actually crouch to counteract that, which is really useful. And Villager Aligned. Villagers will never attack you unless you provoke them. Again, as it is with a majority of mobs, they're neutral towards you unless you provoke them in the majority of cases. They're never going to go against you, because if you attack them, they're going to activate they're going to provoke against you, because that's how most mobs work. Anyway, going through your neutral ability, you've got the Vex Skin. Essentially, your skin is blue and translucent, which is basically just a slight change of it. Kind of like how the Slimerkin goes green and slightly translucent as well, in a similar vein to that one. Running through the cons, you've got Fragile. You have 3 less hearts than the average Minecraft player, and you also lose hunger far faster than the average Minecraft player. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this is of course more of a basic origin. It doesn't have the intricate many different details that some of the more bigger origins do, because it's only going off of the creative liberty of the basic Minecraft mob, while a lot of the other custom concept origins have the ability to take their own liberty to create all these magnificent cool ideas, mainly because of the fact that they don't have a baseline to go off of in Minecraft. After playing around with this origin for around 10 to 20 minutes, I found out that it's pretty much just a basic bare bones origin. It's kind of similar to the bee in the way and how the levitation flight works. Essentially, when you're pressing spacebar, it automatically puts levitation on, but instead of leaving it on until you hit the spacebar again, the levitation automatically goes off when you let go of the spacebar. And essentially speaking, that all the other pros aren't exactly too useful in any ways. The Vex Sense is pretty useless in an overall reality. I mean, yeah, you can see animals through the wall if you hit them, but you have to hit them. and most of the time they don't exactly go through behind a wall. As well as the pillager line thing, it's like, it's good to have that, but at the same time, if you accidentally hurt any of them, they'll go after you anyhow. And overall, I think it's balanced, but it's also an overall boring origin. But anyhow, this is the Flower Spirit Origin version 0.8, aka meaning that this is going to be consistently updated, so make sure to check back into the Origins Discord server to check if there's been any other updates since the time of this video being released. Either way, going into it, a Flower Spirit is a rare creature known as a Flower Spirit that used to live in the flower forest, but they disappeared one day without any trace. You are the last of your kind. Either way, running through the abilities, you've got the Life Energy. It's a bar that fills up by absorbing flowers with your primary ability while holding them. It gives speed and jump boost when at maximum level, and also gives a lot of debuffs as it decreases. You lose life energy from getting hit and also from other powers as well. The power of the flowers. You can use your secondary ability to toggle the channeling of your life energy to use your powers of the 20 flower/flower life things. They all have a unique power. This will deplete your life energy just by using it, or will increase its depletion more than normal when you get hit, depending on its power. Photosynthesis. You cannot eat normal foods. You can get food from standing on any dirt/dirt-like blocks and eating mushrooms/bone meal, but none of them give you saturation. They deplete fast, essentially. You can get food that gives saturation from standing out in the actual sun. Fertilization. You can use tree leaves to create bone meal by using your primary ability while holding leaves. When you use bone meal, your bone meal production efficiency also increases, and it will max rank. You'll get XP from bone mealing. Pollinated. You will get food with saturation, and your life energy will fill up when you are standing still while holding a flower next to a bill. Regreen. When in water or under rain, you will get extra health. The body of a flower spirit. You are small, translucent, and takes more damage than normal from fire. Ideal temperature. In hot biomes, you exhaust a lot faster than while in normal biomes, and in cold biomes, you also move a lot slower. Heptophobia. When you kill something, you get negative effects related to lore that will be added later on. Out of sync. When you wear Elytra, you move a lot slower overall in comparison to normal. And trapped souls. If you're on a soul sand/soil, you will lose life energy and also get nausea as a side effect towards this. When the creator of this Origins data pack sent this to my way, they also described the fact that this is the last gameplay update at this point in time before they add a full-on story and lore towards this Origin. Essentially speaking, this Origin is a lot more than what actually meets the eye. It is planned to be a really cool Origin that has a lot of story and background towards it, and I definitely do recommend you go check this out. As well as another side note is that the actual description to all the abilities and all those bits and pieces in the actual game itself with the data pack is a lot more detailed and goes in a lot more story and bits and pieces about the story itself in comparison to what is actually able to be put out on Discord. Essentially speaking, the person says that the description is around 2,800 letters in total, which, let's be real here, is a pretty lengthy set of descriptions for anything along these lines. So you can definitely tell that the person put a lot of work and a lot of effort into this Origin idea. I highly recommend that you go check it out for yourself and give some love and support to the creator, which I'm 90% sure they will be putting a comment, and I will make sure to pin it down below when they do. One of the first things I want to just immediately point out when playing with this Origin is I absolutely adore the particle effects that they put into this. Like, it's definitely really cool the amount of effort they would have gone through in order to have these cool particle effects just being continuously going when you just press your secondary key. Overall, for my brief stint with playing around with this Origin, I found it to be a very thoroughly enjoyable one to play around with, and I definitely do recommend you go take a try for yourself. But essentially speaking, how do you get it? Now, first off, before you even think about using this one, you want to make sure you have the Paku mod as well, which is essentially that mod that I've been telling you guys all about that is extremely useful and is the reason why you're able to be a smaller than the average Minecraft player in these Origins. As it comes with a lot of these custom Origins, it has a dependency on the Paku mod, which is the reason why it's able to be a small, squishy pink ball. Either way, going through the description, it's Kirby version 1.0. There was never an update to this, so it must have been good enough as it is. It has the impact level of 3, which means it's going to be the most impactful to your way of playing the game. Anyway, going through the description of the player itself, a small, squishy pink ball all the way from Pop Star, going through the lands through quests, has ended up in this blocky surface scape, and now all he has to do is escape. Oxygen meter. You may be a curb, but you need to breathe like normal humans do. This is used by abilities and you cannot go up while inside of the water. Hover, which is your jump button. When in midair, you can press space to use your air and gas, causing upwards momentum, essentially doubling as a double jump of sorts. Air bullet, secondary. You can shoot air pellets at the cost of air, usually only in default form though. And inhale, primary. Holding your primary key will immediately consume anything below 3 hearts and pull things above 3 hearts to you at the cost of the air inside of your body. This will also suck items towards your inventory as well, acting as such some form of an item magnet. Essentially speaking, air is a core part of your abilities, meaning that any air that you have stored inside of your body you can actively use to do different bits and pieces, but it also acts in the same way as normal human lungs. You just have the ability to actively use it far more strongly in comparison to a normal human being. Anyway, going through your copy ability, consuming specific creatures will also turn you into a version of one of the first 9 origins, giving you a special power. Holding sneak and using your secondary will spit that same mob out and revert you to your original state. And yes, you heard that right. Essentially speaking, you have the ability to take a certain origin ability from either one of the 9 original origins from the base origins mod. Of course, this does end up replacing your inhale primary ability when you have it like this, but then you can always just shift and use your secondary to revert back to normal. Mostly water, you are mostly fluid, making you unable to take any form of fall damage whatsoever. Gaping stomach, you have a hunger bar that requires a lot more saturation overall, requiring you to eat whole creatures. You can eat normal food as well, but it won't help as much as it normally does. When it hits 0, you'll starve to death. When you get low, your body does not have the energy to prosper and thus slows down and you start to shiver due to your terrible starvation. Essentially speaking, normal Minecraft hunger, but just on steroids instead. We've also got the curb ability. You are a curb. You are pink and small. Tiny. Your body is smaller than the average person, which also means you have less health overall. Tiny lad. Your arms are very small and thus your range plus mining speed is overall decreased rather than normal. And soft skin. Your soft skin is more vulnerable to sharp objects, making you take double damage from things like arrows, tridents, cacti, the Thor's enchantment, etc. So after playing around with this origin for a little bit, I honestly had a buttload of fun just tossing around doing absolute nonsense, and the first thing that I got to consume was a couple of cows because of course you got to eat food, but then I found there was chicken and consumed that and completely forgot about the fact that I get its powers. Now from what I learned here, your secondary ability becomes the ability that you take. With the Avian Origin, you take that little sprint ability, that boost of flight type thing, and it seems to be something that is going to be present in a lot of other things. I'm assuming when it comes down to the Elytrian Origin, you have to consume the Elytra itself, like you throw the item on the ground, then you actively consume it in. But overall, I just find this to be a super fun origin overall. It's not too broken to say the least, as it's definitely a pain in the ass to deal with, especially considering I spawned right next to a pillager outpost in this world, so that wasn't a great start. But overall, I feel like this is a really good origin that is way worth your time, and you can become a little bit more pinker than you normally are. Going through the brief information that Slayer gives us with this origin, sorry I took so long to give you this pile of bones. I was lazy and burnt out of this stuff just like the actual character. How ironic. Sorry the ability to read an image, I just couldn't fit it inside a Discord message. I'm personally sorry I waited too long to post this origin. I was burnt out and taking a break from origins and Minecraft itself. However, I felt I should post this sooner instead of later. I might still be on break for a bit, but you people do deserve at least what you were promised, and that's an actual good Sans origin. Also, it might be unbalanced right now, but hopefully I can fix that. Warning, you do not have to unzip it to work. That's kind of like part of the reason why I wanted to cover this now. I do have a good collection of origins sitting in the backlog that I'm waiting to make a video on very damn soon, but this one I wanted to do just because I want to give it out there right as it comes out, because Slayer deserves it, because he's really good at doing this. Either way, moving on to the process origin, we've got the energy ability. You have a blue energy bar that will go up 1 point every 3 seconds, but only when you aren't moving. This bar will also fill up if you sleep, essentially speaking, your ability bar. Haha. Acrobatic. Due to your low health, you've learned how to dodge all forms of attack at the cost of your energy. Gaster Blaster. Primary. Your creator also happened to make a weapon of war that you can still use to this day, even though he is gone. Bone attack. Attack/destroy. If you use this ability while not holding anything, you will fire bones on a bone bar that will fully regenerate every few seconds and does not take any energy. This ability can be held down. And Karmic Retribution. Karmic Retribution, better known as Karma or KI, is a poison-like damage that can stack when Sans uses attacks like Bones or Blast blasters. Like poison, this effect cannot kill, but is much faster than regular poison is. So far, it's already got an interesting set of abilities, but of course, we've got to have something to balance out these beautiful pros. Going through the neutral abilities, we've got Whelp, it was worth a shot, Shift plus Primary. At low energy, you can spare nearby enemies. If anyone hits you as a spare message is above their hotbar, you will enter Bad Time mode. But what is this mode? Bad Time. Once you've entered the Bad Time, your energy is replaced for bar that will go down no matter what you do. Nothing costs energy except for dodging. There is no cooldown on dashing. The blaster cooldown is cut in half and you get more bones. Once your time runs out, you'll be brought out of Bad Time and set to low energy automatically. So far these abilities are really detailed, and honestly, so far, just from listing these are really cool. Going into the cons, we've got Failed Experiment. Being a failed experiment for an artificial skeleton project, you end up only having 1 heart of health. Yeah, you heard that right. It's a true sense. You've got a single heart of health. Don't get hit when you have no energy because you'd be screwed. Lazy Pile of Bones. As the laziest creature in all of existence, running out of energy will instantly make you fall asleep, making you unable to attack, break blocks, or dodge. Once the time bar has passed, you will wake up with half energy. Essentially speaking, don't run out of energy when you're in battle. Just stop moving for a split moment, which will just like recharge a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to fall asleep mid-battle and be absolutely screwed. And then of course, Frail Hands. Your bones are frail and without muscle. Magic Bean is the only thing that keeps you moving. You encounter some problems. You cannot wear armor, use shields, shoot bows, or deal much damage with melee. Essentially speaking, your Gaster Blaster and your Bone Attack are going to be your main ways of attacking things, because none other way is going to actually work to your advantage that well whatsoever, and you can't wear armor, so you have to rely on your energy bar to dodge things, otherwise you're screwed. Honestly, from just these abilities alone, I feel like this is overall balanced, because whilst you do have some powerful attacking abilities and the ability to dodge, you only have a single heart of health and you cannot wear any form of armor whatsoever, so if you get hit once, you're dead. But hey, let's move into the review. So I'm just gonna say it straight, I thoroughly enjoyed like just the small amount of time I spent playing around with this. I just love all the little details of this. When you dodge an ability and any form of damage, whether it be taking fall damage or getting hit by something or just jumping to lava, not only do you get a beautiful little sound effect, which I'll try to have in the background, you also get teleported by the smallest distance. But this can really do a lot of different things. For example, if you're underground, you take a bit of damage, there's a chance that you'll be put up higher in the ground. Like I went underground in one of the tunnels and just took a bit of fall damage and then was TP'd back to the surface, and it was so confusing, but it's so cool at the same time. And when you do run out of that energy bar, you get flat up frozen, you go blind, you can't see crap, you're done. You just got to sit there, hope to dear God no one attacks you while you're down, and that's about it. But this is honestly, honest to God, my favorite Origin I've played with so far. I definitely do recommend you go check it out. There has been a lot of work and a lot of bits and pieces put into it. I will, as I said, we'll try to have the audio in the background of the random different sound effects that the guy set up to go with all this Origin bits and pieces. So first off, going through the basic details, you're going to need Origins, Origins Plus, and also the Latino Origins mod. Essentially speaking, you're just going to need some extra Origins jar mods that I feel like most people have by now when they go and play this, but I'll still leave them in the description for you if you want to make sure to download them and add them into your folder. Anyway, going through the description of this Origin, we've got once a noble steed, now Hell's newest escapee. You may be free, but there is a price for everything. Essentially speaking, this is a Hell horse, and now you can really understand why the Fallen Angel had a lot of horse description inside of its abilities and all that, even though the guy probably could have changed him to be a little bit of a different reason why the abilities are the way they are, but he just left it mostly as a horse type thing. Either way, moving into the pros, we've got Deathly Expulsion. Due to your force conditioning in Hell, you can launch far by pressing your primary key. And Deadshot, you can shoot the heads of your withered comrades, inflicting wither on those who dare to attack you by using your secondary ability. I believe I can fly. After battling the winged guard demons in Hell, you've gained their wings and have the ability to fly normally. No fall, go brrr. The hackers destroyed some 12-year-old's base, taught you how to negate fall damage. The Boys non-toxic edition, you've made some friends in Hell, undead ones, making them all on the surface friendly to you as well, unless you provoke them, of course, because that's how it always goes. Don't attack them unless you want them to attack you back. And Thick Skin, you've been made stronger with all that torture you've gotten down in Hell, giving you natural armor overall. And just a quick note that I've noticed from one of the comments in the past videos with similar perks like this where you've got more natural armor. Essentially speaking, Minecraft, the game itself, does not allow you to go over the maximum amount of armor that diamond armor can give you. hence the reason why Neverite doesn't give you any bonus perks, and essentially meaning that you can't go too high over the max amount that diamond gives you naturally. You just have extra armor from the very get-go and don't require full diamond armor in order to make the full armor bars filled. Anyhow, running through the neutral abilities, you've got Mist Twist. Death still lingers on you, making you translucent and a different color as well. And you're a horse dude. Players can ride you, but be cautious though, because their origins may interfere with your abilities. Running through the cons, we've got Deja Vu. Underneath roofed areas, including those of the Nether and the End, you get slowness 3. Trauma, even the thought of hell brings you back to that wretched place, and fire isn't any better, giving you more damage from fire overall. Where did they go? Apparently the extra HP you got in hell didn't transfer to the overworld, so now you only have 7 heart. You're a ghost hawk, mate. No shields, since they fall through your hands, because again, you're a horse. And skinny dipping, swimming lessons are expensive. To be completely honest, I have no idea what that one means. And normal metabolism is lame. You weren't fed much in hell, so you jump at the sight of actual food, giving you a larger appetite than most things. Essentially speaking, your hunger is going to decrease far faster than the average Minecraft player, and also just a little bit of an added perk, you're also immune to the wither effect. Anyhow, after the brief rundown of the abilities, let's run through the review, eh? So the first thing I wanted to figure out before I went any too far deep into this playing around with this one is to figure out what it meant by you can't swim or things along those lines. Essentially speaking, you touch water, you start taking damage. It's pretty self-explanatory after that point. But besides that, let's actually think about the most obvious part in the room here. This origin, when it comes down to sheer movement ability, is powerful. You might consider it overpowered considering the fact that you have the ability to fly off your Elytra, and your primary ability refreshes quick enough that you can use it again while still being in the air and not worry about falling out of the air whilst flying around. You can infinitely fly like it's nobody's business, and then secondary to that, you don't even need to use the primary ability to get off the ground. You can simply use the Wither Explosion, lose half your health, and then use your primary ability to get moving forward, because the Wither ability gets you up far higher in the air based upon the explosion that the Witherheads do, and then you can just use your primary ability to get moving, and because your primary ability also activates a regeneration ability, it ultimately heals you back all the health that you lost when you took that shot from the Witherhead. Overall, I feel like there's just like one key thing that needs to be tweaked in order to make this way more balanced, and that is just adjusting the cooldown to your primary ability. If the primary ability cooldown was far longer, like let's say at least twice, if not 3 times the current length, it will make it so that it's not too powerful thing. You can't infinitely fly because of it, and you're not going to be able to just easily heal in the middle of a fight because you use that ability, because it activates a really powerful regeneration. Other than that, I do believe that this one's overall pretty damn balanced, aside from the movement, aside from that primary ability, probably just needs a bit of a cooldown adjustment. This is going to be an Inkling Origin based off on the Inkling from Splatoon, so of course we're going to be expecting some pretty cool ideas and concepts coming around that idea. Either way, moving into the description, a squid evolved to have a human appearance, its body made of an oily ink substance, hindering its ability to touch water. Going through the abilities, we've got Great Slipper. Your oily body has evolved to have the ability to walk through iron bars. Super Jump. You have the ability to jump very high, primary ability with a 20-second cooldown. Inky Stun. You can squirt a bit of ink at your foes, causing them to be immobilized temporarily. That's your secondary ability. Small. You are slightly smaller than usual, being around 1.82 blocks tall, so just barely smaller than the normal Minecraft player. It's not going to be very noticeable unless they purposely make it so you can't jump anything anymore. You got Acrobatics. You take no fall damage whatsoever, and Hydrophobia. You take damage when in contact with water. Not so strong. Your weak and nimble arms cannot pack as large as a punch as the average player, meaning that you have a -2 damage debuff on your basic melee attacks. I'm assuming this doesn't affect your bow or range attacks whatsoever. And weak. Your nimble and oily body makes you weak and more susceptible to harm, meaning 4 less HP or 2 less heart. Now, this origin has been quite a few different updates at this point, so I'm going to go through all of those tweaks and changes that happened towards these updates. So going through version 2, it tweaks the super jump while adding the squid form gimmick. Squid form changes how you move around while providing positive boosts on a toggle. Version 2 keeps the same powers as version 1, and there's already a version 3 as of the release of that version 2. But then moving on to the version 3 quick overview, we've got the color gimmick that gets added in, allows for a color to be chosen, which right now is purely cosmetic. Super jump was also changed to be only possible during the squid form version, and the power was also changed. Preparations for the specials were also made, as well as other nerfing and changes were made, such as adding tentacles, a power used to nerf squid form. Feedback is of course appreciated, and we we move on to the next update, colors are set in a separate layer. You can now pick them to separate an origin. When you pick your color at the start of the game, you cannot change it without using an origin orb. There are 8 built-in, 7 colors and a colorless option for those who like their skin looking normal. Yes, it's possible to make a custom color in the zip file that Inkling version 3 comes in with a template and instructions on how to. Custom colors. The instructions are helpful, hopefully. It isn't stated in the instructions, but the power file, you can add an alpha argument after the blue argument to add transparency, set the value to decimal number between 0 and 1, and if wanted, the file structure should be correct. The template should not work itself. The template is also a first revision and will be updated if it's needed. Essentially speaking, this has got a color origin that gets added in after the fact in a very late update, which I'll have the most recent version that I know of in the description down below. And either way, let's move on to the review section of it all. This is one of those origins where I'm not 100% sure what to actually properly think about it. It's not exactly bad per se. The ideas are definitely there and they definitely have been executed very decently, but I'm not too sure in a proper game scenario as to how useful these abilities are going to be. Now, one weird thing that I did realize is when you use a super jump in your squidling form, it can occasionally have a weird bug out where you go insanely high instead of doing the small normal jump that you normally do. This isn't always guaranteed though. It's really at random. If you look directly up, you sometimes will get an extraordinarily jump, which I feel like is what happens when you press the spacebar and your primary ability at the exact same time. You just go to go up into space for no good reason with the super jump, and then sometimes you barely go anywhere. Like, I feel like that might just be a bug with the super jump being a bit glitchy and all that, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. Also, in many occasions, if you're up against a wall when you go from the squid form back to your human form, you will take a crap ton of damage because you'll get suffocated into the wall for a temporary period of time. And depending on when you get that damage, whether it be at the start of the transformation or at the back end of the transformation, it can be a lot of damage because you take a lot more damage in squid form, or it could be barely any damage. It's really just one of its own type. I like the idea. Frankly, I like the idea behind it, but it's just, there's some weirdness about the Origin's execution itself that it could definitely be far better. I like the idea of the color coordination that you have the ability to have, and also the ability to add your own custom colors in there. Definitely well done there, but I feel like that the abilities just need a bit of twinkering, and I cannot figure out for the life of me how to activate the Inkling squirt thing. Like, I couldn't find it. Like, there's no instructions on what you need to do to execute it, and it's not attached to any form of ability at all, so I was a bit clueless on that one, but anyhow, going through the description of the demon, it's an impact 3, so aka it's going to be the most impactful type of origin to your game. A race of monstrous supernaturals and malevolent beings, demons possess a murderous instinct to kill and devour humans and have lost most of their memories from their previous human lives. So going through the abilities, you've got the demon physiques. Your physical powers and recovery exceeds that of a regular human, and you get stronger the more that you kill. There is a lot of details when it comes down to this ability itself. Running through it, you've got Lesser Demon. You start off as Lesser Demon with Speed 1 and Regeneration 1 as your base stat as a demon. Lower Moon, once you kill 100 different entities, and this does count form of mobs and anything along those type of things, you become the Lower Moon. You get previous bonus plus the Blood Demon Art, as well as a secondary ability called the Blood Compass. Splatters your own blood in the area around you to detect enemies' movements, allowing you to minimize the damage you take for around 45 seconds of resistance 1, 65-second cooldown, and damages yourself upon activation around 3 hearts of pure damage on yourself. After you kill around 500 entities, you go up into the upper moves phase. Again, you get all the previous bonuses, but also get strength 1, and on top of it, when you have 3 hearts or above, as well as regeneration 3 when you're below 3 hearts. So essentially speaking, if you go below 3 hearts, you get a good regeneration to get you back over the top of it, and then you get given a boost of strength so you can deal with the situation a little bit better. You will know when you evolve because there'll be sounds and visuals based upon how many things you kill, but the moment you die, your kill count will be completely reset and you'll be respawning at the Lesser Demon stage, having to kill 500 entities again to get back up to the top stage. Either way, moving back onto your rest of your pros, you've got the Leap ability. You can perform a long jump by pressing your primary key button, but this will also consume your hunger, which I feel like is a really good way to counteract a massive jump ability. Like, I feel like there's always something a little bit overpowered with a jump ability. Sometimes it needs just a longer cooldown, but I feel like this is a good way to go go around having an absurdly long cooldown that it just takes a lot of extra hunger to do a super jump. You've also got night vision, meaning you can just see better in the darkness. You got acrobatics, meaning you take less full damage. You don't take no full damage. Instead, you take 50% of the damage you would normally take, so you can still die by full damage, but it's going to require a lot higher of a high in order to do that, as well as high stamina, meaning that you exhaust a fair bit slower than the normal Minecraft player. Either way, moving on to the rest of them, the neutrals and the cons, we've got man-eating demon. You cannot eat regular food, regain hunger and saturation by killing. 1 minute cooldown between each kill, giving you hunger. Nether inhabitant, your natural spawn will be in the nether, so good luck, have fun starting in the nether. Insomnia, you cannot sleep or set a spawn point on a bed. Extreme heliphobia, instant damage 1 over time, plus mining fatigue 3, and hunger wreck when exposed to the sun. Holy crap, that one is really just whoa. Cursed being, you take more damage from weapons enchanted with the curse of vanishing. Close combatant, reduced melee attack range and no shields, and no pearls. You do not have the ability to use the teleport using pearls. My god, these cons are definitely something not to laugh at, because Jesus, man. Either way, they're having a few updates to this origin, so I just wanted to cover them as well. We've got, first off, the ability was changed from a 50% fall damage resistance to a fall damage immunity. Demon's ability sounds were changed. It was also slightly reworked Demon's Blood Demon Art. It now deals a 4-block radius of instant damage 1 on activation, and cooldown is 45 seconds. No downtime, but still sacrifices 3 halves of pure damage upon activation, as well as Demon's Leap's ability has 3 charges, increased its cooldown from 9 to 12 seconds. Additional information, you emit crying obsidian particles, your kill count resets on your die. This is already written in the original pitch, but people are asking. High stamina doesn't increase the amount of health regen from saturation, and when you gain a higher demon rank, evolve 100 or 500 kills effect, you emit a soul particles and sound effect. So what are your thoughts on this one? Do you think that one ability, that one con is just way overkill? I personally feel like it might be, but again, that's just my personal opinion. Now, one thing I just want to make it clear right off the bat, this is meant to be overpowered. There's a lot of origins kind of like this. They're more meant for single player fun rather than being used in a normal survival origin server. And so, of course, just like the Godborne one that I've covered in a week ago, it's more made just to have fun on your own. Don't put it into a Minecraft server because it's just a waste of time because it's overkill. Either way, running through it, this is by a guy called Osh in the Origins Discord server. As always, I have a link to the Origins Discord server in the description down below, which I always recommend you go check it out, because if you ever need any help with how to function these things, how to make your own origin, for example, they're the best place to go, because there's a lot of people who are willing to help there. Either way, let's roll into the powers and abilities of this Herobrine Origin. Running through the pros, you've got Invincible, because of course you are, you're Herobrine. You can also walk on water, because of course you are literally God. You can also fly or swim in the air, which is what it will look like. It's very weird how it does, but when you're flying around, you look like you're swimming. You can also cause a lightning storm, which is your primary ability, summon lightning at any point in time, and if you have a lightning trident, then you're going to have a fun of a time. You can also summon an active nuke as your secondary ability, because why not? You're Herobrine, you're overkill, you're going to murder everyone regardless, so why not give you a nuke? You also have the ability to one-hit almost anything in the game. It's just because why not? I'll probably test it on the Ender Dragon, and I'll give an update on that in the review section of the video. You also cannot lose hunger whatsoever, so you're just creative mode at this point. You also do not take knockback aside from TNT just because of a bug with Minecraft, and you also are transparent. So far, this is already sounding like a very overkill origin to have, but you know, sometimes this is just what you need in Minecraft. You need something overkill just to have a bit of fun with when you want to screw around, when you don't want to exactly be creative, but you don't want to be screwed in survival either because you may be bad at all. You just want to have a bit of fun. But there's been a few updates to this one. First, we got version 1.1, where it added a feature about you instantly mining anything, but you will still require the tool that's, let's say, for stone, you'll still need a pickaxe in your hand, you'll just instantly mine it instead. So essentially, if it has a tool requirement, you will still need that tool per se, but you'll just instantly break it. And then another bug that was fixed is you couldn't swim in water due to walking on it. You must swim in floating water or kelp, seagrass to swim in water, and other minor bugs, bits and pieces along those lines. So first off, as a quick PSA, you're going to need to unzip this folder and then take the second folder in. You're going to have to go into a folder, and then you should have the right one there. Essentially, you want the folder that says Herobrine_Origin that does not have version 1.1 on the start of it, and that's the right one, and that's going to work. And now straight off the bat, holy crap, that was just fun. Like, of course, it's not proper survival, and that's just kind of how it is, but it's just its own type of fun. Like, you know how messing around in GTA 5 or your favorite GTA game, just having all these cheats and just murdering cops in a tank or something along those lines? It's kind of like that type of fun, where you're just pissing around for the sake of you can. I mean, you're walking around with lightning being at your fingertips, you can drop a nuke and go fly high, which, by the way, that was some interesting things. Like, it was ultimately like a quite fun experience to have. Now, of course, you're not going to play with this seriously because, again, it's practically God mode. On Minecraft, just you don't have the creative stuff. It's kind of a weird middle ground in between creative and normal Minecraft, but you also have TNT at your fingertips to command at any point in time in your secondary ability. Overall, it's definitely a pot of fun. It's overpowered as all heck. Don't put it into a server. Not a good idea, but it's definitely fun if you want to piss around in a random world. Like, let's say you download a remake of the Dream World and you just piss around with this one. It'd definitely be a fun time. Now, going into the Vampire Origin, you're going to need the Perkway mod. I'm being told that's how you say it. I keep getting it wrong, and I'm pretty sure this is also going to be wrong as well. Just let me know in the comments down below on how you think it should be said. I'll just try to get it right sooner or later. Essentially speaking, this origin has two different forms. You've got a vampire form, you've also got a bat form. Essentially speaking, that's why you need the Perkway mod. Going through the vampire form, you've got the pros of the blood suck. You can steal your opponent's life, passive with a cooldown, and also active while in the bat form. You move faster than other players, and you also get less exhaustion. You also have night vision, and you're also immune to poison and hunger, also an active ability when you're a bat. Moving through the cons, you're sun weak. Being in contact with the sun can make you weaker and slower overall. Carnivore, you can only eat meat, also active when you're a bat. Noble clothes, when you're a noble vampire, you can only wear elegant clothes. You can only wear armor with protection values less or equal of chainmail, also active when you're a bat. Essentially speaking, despite the fact that the elegant clothing thing doesn't exactly make too much sense when you consider diamonds would be the most elegant piece of clothing you can get, it makes sense in a way to have a nerf of that type of nature. Either way, moving into the bat form becomes a bat. It's a toggleable, as well as the bat won't be affected by the sun, and as a bat you can fly, almost like in creative fly mode. I think it'd be somewhat similar to the bee flying, where it's just like a mixture of levitation that goes on and off when you press certain buttons. But as a bat, you're also smaller in size. It doesn't specify how much smaller. As a bat, you also have 3 less hearts, and you also move slower than your vampire form. Either way, that's Vampire Origin 1 that I want to showcase today. I've got a second one that I also want to showcase today, so we're doing a double Origin showcase today, because, you know, like the first one was a bit shorter. This one's also another vampire-based one. Descended from bats who thrive in darkness and feast on the blood of your enemies. This one's made by Pello, the lazy one in brackets. Going through the powers, you've got Gloom. You start taking withered damage a few moments after being in the sun. This can be delayed by wearing some armor, or even reversing by standing into water or using fire resistance potions. Claws. When fighting with your bare hands, your claws deal extra damage to enemies with flesh. Bloodlust. Unable to eat food, you survive by absorbing blood in your enemies. Blood is also absorbed faster when you're using your bare claws to fight. Breathless. Other undead are naturally neutral towards you, but may become hostile if they sense violence. Wolves, bears, and golems, on the other hand, will also attack directly on sight, making them an automatic enemy of you. Bat wings. Using the primary attack action key, you can levitate over obstacles, but this quickly drains your hunger. Priorities. Your food bar will consume, restoring your health until full, unless you are on the verge of starvation. Desecrated tomb. You can only sleep in a bed if it's surrounded by bricks or polished stone. You can also sleep during the day by burying yourself in bricks or polished stone and pressing the secondary action key. The day skipping power is disabled in the MP version of the pack. Fragile Predator. You see better in the dark and hold your breath up to 8 times longer than the average Minecraft player, but you're also unaffected by night vision and water breathing potions and health altering effects. You can also take double damage from fire, arrows, and tridents. Nemesis. If a vampire slayer, a player wearing a pumpkin helmet, hits you with a wooden sword, it may paralyze you or worse. This power is disabled in the SP version of the pack. Notes this data required Origins version for 06. Both single player and multiplayer versions are included. You need to remove the chosen pack from the download file to use it. Full readme and the things. So, you know, typical normally things. I'm going to link to it. This origin is an almost dragon-based origin. Essentially speaking, after a long line of dragonborns beating with dragons, you have become the closest thing to a dragon while still maintaining the standard dragonborn physique that has become extremely common among the humanoid-based dragons. Practically mean, the idea behind this is it's meant to be as close to a dragon-based origin you possibly can while still keeping it to the confines of the human Minecraft figure that you are. But unlike most other Dragonborn origins, it actually has the ability to have wings, so you can technically fly, but there's a bit of a caveat to that, and we'll get over that in the abilities right about now. Either way, running through the pros and cons, we've got Dragon Breath. The fire and magic in your belly can be summoned to rage upon others. Be aware, you can still get harmed from these effects yourself. Practically speaking, it's the Dragon Breath that the Ender Dragon throws on you in the end battle fight. Essentially speaking, it's kind of like that. It's slightly smaller around that, but moving on to the next thing, you've got Dragon Wings. Much like any of your ancestors, you actually have the ability to fly. Unlike the pure dragons though, you cannot hover yet. Practically just an elytra, essentially speaking. Dragon Strength. Born of the skies, your legs are stronger and allow you to jump far higher. You can gather all of your strength to launch yourself higher and take flight. Again, the whole launching yourself and taking flight has the ability. It's basically one of those mostly done a lot by a lot of different origins. It was started by the Elytrian Origin. It's been done in many other origins that have wings from the get-go. It's basically just a really cool thing to have at the start, because what's the point in having Elytra wings when you can barely use them because you don't have any rockets yet? And then of course just a better jump overall, like that's pretty good. Going on to Dragon's Resilience, surpassing the Dragonborn ancestors, you have come closer to anything to being a dragon, making your scales and hide stronger than any others before you. Full extra bar of both armor and health. Intent was to survive the earlier stages of fighting dragons. Essentially speaking, you get a massive boost in not only armor, but in health as well. And then last out of the pros, you've got Dragon's Vision. I wonder what those eyes can see. Essentially speaking, you've got night vision by default as a dragon, meaning you don't need those potions and you don't need actual torches in order to see things. So hey, that just makes it a little bit easier for you in your life. Either way, moving on into the cons, there's only actually two of them, which you might think is a bad thing considering all the good pros and stuff along those lines, but let's roll through them. First off, you're a carnivore. Nearly a dragon, your body cannot sustain any food except for meat, which is kind of just an understandable thing. It happens a lot with a lot of these origins that are based off of real life things or things that have been in fantasy and stuff along those lines. Only being able to eat meat as a dragon is understandable, and thick hands. Almost attaining the full dragon form means it's difficult to use a shield, so you tend not to use one. Essentially speaking, you can't use a shield whatsoever. An added piece of information that the creator added into this origin is a lot of this stuff is basic to being a Dragonborn. The intent behind this was to make a playing Dragonborn a bit more safe while playing the medieval Minecraft mod pack. I tend to avoid adding cons, but if there's any that are needed, let me know with some suggestions if any. Again, this is intended for usage inside of the medieval Minecraft mod pack. One of the weirder things to be aware of when playing around with this origin is it's got its own little weird quirks and bits and pieces to go with it. First off, when you're playing around with your Dragon's Breath, there are very often occasions where when you throw the Dragon's Breath, if it doesn't hit something immediately after you throw it, the Dragon Breath effect will actually spawn right on top of you, dealing damage to you. And I'm not 100% sure about this one because it doesn't say so in any form of cons list, but there seems to be that fall damage has been turned up by a good notch, as well as the magic damage you get from the Dragon's Breath also hurts a lot more than what it normally would, considering you're meant to have near full armor from the very get-go. So I feel like from just playing around with this, it definitely does seem like it's on the level of maybe it's a bit overpowered when you consider the fact that there's only two actual known cons in there. But when you go through all the other bits and pieces around it, and being the fact that it really doesn't have too many good things about it in the overall grand scheme of things, it may seem like that those abilities and those pros are really, really good. They need to have something overkill to balance it out in the con section, but from just playing around with it, I feel like it'd just be another average playthrough like an Elytrian, because you have the ability to shoot fireballs and you have armor immediately. Yeah, you have a bit few more abilities in comparison to normal, but overall I feel like that there's definitely a heightened increase on fall damage, because that fall damage hurt in the many different times where I accidentally disabled my Elytra or hit the ground wrong when flying around with the Elytra, and many other different things along those lines. I'd definitely say this is definitely one to go check out for yourselves. So as I said before, this is the Lost Soul Origin made by the Discord user Dilla25. Running through the description of the origin, once sent to the Nether, then sent back to the overworld. You don't know where you truly belong, or if you ever will truly belong. Running through the abilities, you've got Haunted Arrow. You gather all of your darkest memories and fire them at a foe, causing them to have an impaired vision for a certain amount of time. From the brief amount of experimentation I did with playing around with this ability, I couldn't quite tell if it does actually give the blindness effect or any form of imparation of the vision, because you can't exactly test it out by seeing how mobs react, because most of the time blindness doesn't actually affect them, but there normally would be some form of particle effects coming off of them to let you know that, hey, they've been given this effect anyhow, and I couldn't see that at all with the zombie. Either way, moving on to the next ability. Soul Leap. You bring up the souls from the Nether to jump an extra block higher. Essentially speaking, it's basically a jump boost without the jump boost effect being on. And because of the fact that this isn't actually a jump boost, it's actually adding boost to your own normal jump. You can actually drink a potion of leaping to get jump boost 2, and you're able to jump up 4 blocks high in certain scenarios, which I don't know how to feel about that one. That one's pretty nice to say the least. You can still use potions to get those added effects in, and you still have them by default, as well as I like the use of the soul walking, the soul boots particle effect that you get underneath you when you jump. The next ability is Release Your Soul. You can release your soul and spread it out far enough to point it out that you can phase through block. This incorporates with the soul spread ability, which when you use your primary ability, you release your soul and lose your humanoid form and become invisible, which gives you the Release Your Soul ability, which allows you to walk through blocks. I don't know why they're both described underneath two different things when they all come from the single ability, but we'll go with that and I'll go over it briefly. The first beautiful part about this ability, you can sit around in the blocks and troll around with the mobs around you, because they'll start hunting you if you're nearby enough, but because you're inside of walls, they can't exactly get to you, so it's funny to watch them just spaz around for a bit, as well as just to jump out, quickly hit them, and then shift back down into the actual blocks itself. Overall, this ability is provided with a bit of fun, and it is practically what the Phantom has practically. Either way, moving into the next ability, you've got Light Feet. Due to your ghostly state and having no true body, mean you don't actually take any fall damage because you really don't ever actually hit the ground. This is effective in both forms, both the Phantom / Ghost state as well as the normal humanoid state. Moving into your neutral ability, you've got Charred Skin. When in the Nether, your skin has boiled over, leaving you with charred skin. I'm going to assume that it has something to do with the fact that you're not only a little bit grayer than normal, you're also very transparent in comparison to the normal Minecraft player, but you can't be 100% sure with this one. I don't know, you tell me, what's the difference between my skin now? Moving into your cons, you've got Dead or Alive. Being a shade of your past life and not being fully dead results into a half health of a normal human in between life and death. Overcomplication aside, essentially it just means that you have 5 hearts instead of the normal 10. But you know, good descriptions are good descriptions as always. More exhaustion. You lose hunger quicker because you waste energy in keeping your soul in a humanoid form. From what I can tell, the hunger losses are roughly about the same in either mode. Essentially, in the humanoid form, you lose it quickly. You lose it as quickly in the soul loss form as well. It doesn't really matter which mode you're in. You lose your hunger just as fast in either. Blinding light. You haven't been able to see the sun for so long that it burns your skin. The only heat that you can get is from the Nether. Being in the soul spread mode will allow you to not get burnt when in the sun, and you know what's absolutely genius about this data pack? When you do spawn, you'll automatically spawn within the spread soul mode, so you won't be cooking the moment that you spawn in the Minecraft world, which I personally think is just a beautiful addition there, just a little tweak to make it so you don't get murdered the moment you join a world, just because that's what your origin does. And moving into the next con, you've got Meaty Diet. You only ate flesh in the Nether, and now you cannot stand the taste of anything but that. Now, words and descriptions can be misleading here. As it says you can only eat flesh and that's the only thing you can stand, but it just means that you can eat normal meat and all the things along those lines. Rotten flesh will still have the chance of giving you the hunger buff, and I literally got that with the only bit of rotten flesh that I ate just to try it out. And vegetables whatsoever, fruit, anything that's not meat will not work, so just throw it out. You can't use it, it's pointless. To get into today's origin, the Archangel. Going through the description, we got Savior, Killer, Harbinger of Hope or Destruction. I am unsure who or what I am, but I'd like to find out. Your wings are formed to metal and can withstand flight. This is a level 2 impact on the game, and let's run to the ability. Metallic Wing Shards. Your wings formed into metal, and you can now throw sharp metal shards from your wing at your enemy that does around 5 hearts of damage, your primary key ability. So from playing around with this one, when you hit a mob with these arrows, they do tend to bounce back to you as well. Essentially speaking, the first arrow to hit the mob will hit the mob, but the other 2 will actually bounce out back towards you. And yeah, that's right, you shoot 3 arrows when you use this ability, but the arrows don't actually hit you. So I wanted to experiment to see if you can actually get the arrows to hit you in any way, and if they're lobbed into the ground, you break that block and let those arrows fall on you, they do actually hit you and actually give you the glowing effect because they're actually spectral arrows. So yeah, fun bit of information for that one. The next ability is Wing Shielding. Your metal wings are able to withstand any projectiles and protect you from any damage for around 8 seconds. This is your secondary ability. Yes, I set up myself a death trap in order to shoot arrows and fire charges into myself to test this ability, and I can say for sure that it definitely works until it doesn't work and then you die. Jokes aside, it's actually quite an interesting ability overall. The fact that you have like a few seconds of you're just got complete immunity. You will still take knockback in other bits and pieces from whatever hits you, but you just won't take any form of damage at all. So could be helpful, could be still annoying because the knockback's still in effect. Either. Moving on to the next ability, Wings Uplift. You can use your wings to boost your uplift, giving you some boost. Press the X button. You can use this like a firework and also like a launch. So first things first, this is nothing like the actual Elytra's jump ability. It actually doesn't exactly jump you whatsoever. It's like a dash of sorts. Essentially speaking, the best way to use this is already start flying off of the ground. So pretty much just jump up, press your space button, activate your Elytra rings, and then press the X button to use it. It's kind of like a very heavily potent firework that lasts a little less time frame than the actual firework. It's got a stronger hit initially, but then it slows off a lot quicker. Overall, it's actually really interesting how it's been implemented. Instead of using what everyone else tends to do when they add Elytra wings to their abilities and reuse the Elytrian ability, it's actually its own different thing. It's similar in a way, but it's different and stands out more on its own. Either way, moving on to the next ability, you've got expanded wings. Your wings are long and are able to hit people with your wings, giving you slightly more reach than normal. So your reach is actually pretty extended. I think it's like roughly 8 to 9 blocks you can actually reach away from. I didn't get the exact precise number because I was accidentally moving around slightly, but 8 blocks you can reach is really long of a reach, as you can see in the gameplay here. Like, I'm over on the water and I can break half of the part of the mountain off. Moving into the next ability, you've got Archangel's Vengeance. The Dark of the Night provides you the ability with more gifts. These gifts seem to be a nice healthy dosing of regeneration and night vision too. Moving on to the cons now for the Origin, we got low altitude level. In low altitude levels, you get sickened since you're used to the fresh air. You get slowness and weakness under Y64. Yep, it is exactly what it says in the tin. Essentially speaking, around the spawn points, like unless you're on mountains when you spawn, like you're going to have it by default a majority of the time. It just means you have to build higher up in the air, I guess. Next con, energy consumption. Having wings uses up more of your energy, thus you need more food to provide said energy. So from what I was able to gather, essentially me speaking, it just means your hunger decreases far faster than normal. It doesn't really mean anything much else. Every other bit of food gives a normal amount of hunger bars, you just lose it quicker. Either way, moving into the meltable wings, your wings tend to melt in a very high temperature of lava, so you take 2 times damage from lava, but normal fire still does the same amount of damage as it normally does. Practically speaking, don't ever touch lava, it will literally kill you now. You just jump in it for a moment, you jump right back out, you take 2 hits of damage from the lava, that is almost your entire health bar gone, and the fire left over from that lava will just finish you off. 2 times damage from lava, that can practically 2-shot you. Either way, moving on to the next ability, you've got aerial flight. You use suits that aren't too heavy to make your fly fast, no diamond or netherite. Understandable logic behind this, how you can't have too strong of an armor because it's too heavy or it makes it easier to fly, but then you forget the fact that gold is heavy as all hell, and yet is always allowed in these type of things. It's just its own little weird quirk about this entire thing. Anyhow, moving into the next con, you've got body structure. Your bones are less stronger because you use most of your bones to fly your wings, making you take 2 times damage from kinetic energy. Can I just say that last description of body structure, it's just filled with a lot of what? Your bones are less stronger. Okay, I'm sorry, language. Jesus, man. Yeah, I'm just gonna cut in the clip that I was using before when I was actually trying to get my hunger down. I just continuously died over and over again by slamming myself into a wall or onto a tree or anything along those lines. Yeah, you die far quicker with kinetic energy, so be careful when doing that type of thing when flying around. Anyhow, running through the description, we got the Thief, a poor lad whose only goal was to become richer, turn to a life of crime and sneakery to accomplish his true desire of stealth. And just for a quick clarification, this is a 1.16.5 data pack, but it might work with 1.17 Origins. Just give it a try, it might break, it might not, depends on what you find out. Either way, let's get into the actual abilities. First up, we have Swift. Your thievery requires speed, and thus your body has adjusted to it, making you far faster than normal. Now, whilst there is no actual indication of a potion effective speed on you, there is a noticeable speed difference between between the normal walking and how fast you're actually walking with this Origin on. I personally believe at least. I'm not 100% sure. I do think it is faster, but you can't exactly be 100% sure of that one, mainly because you don't know if you actually got speed on you because there's no actual potion effect for it. Either way, moving to the next ability, we've got Acrobats. Your thievery requires your body strength and thus your legs have grown stronger, allowing you to jump higher while sprinting. So running through the gist of it, when you're running around normally, like where you do not have sprint activate, you jump at the average height. But when you activate sprint, you can actually jump far higher. In fact, it's roughly around 3.5 blocks from what I could find out. For a bit of experimenting, if you do jump over 4 blocks, you do tend to climb a bit, and yes, that's an ability you also have, which we'll go over in a moment. And then I just pretty much went down to having a tower of 3 blocks of grass and a slab on top of it, and I think there's a possibility it might have like latched on and climbed like the last little pixel, but it's like almost 3.5 blocks of a jump height. I'm not 100% sure that it's like 3.5. You can jump 3 blocks guaranteed, but you might be able to jump 3.5. Either way, we'll move on to the next ability. Anyway, running through the next ability, Lightfoot. Jumping from high heights has had no effect on you since you were a young lad. Makes your job far easier than normal. And something else I'll add in here with this one, you can also have the ability to climb up walls as well, because this isn't actually specified in amongst this ability list that the guy posted on Discord whatsoever, so I thought I'd specify that out with the whole Lightfoot one because it kind of makes sense to bundle it in with that one. Anyhow, moving into your neutral ability, you've got Eclipse. Standing in direct sunlight, you take way more damage. Whilst you're in the shadows though, you're difficult to track, and in some cases you're also invisible. So this one needs a bit of an explanation. Essentially at light level 15, which is typical daylight levels, you will be taking extra damage than usual. Moving into your little tunnel of light and making it darker, around the light of 10, you'll see your skin go a little bit more transparent. That is when you're in the shadows enough in order to not take the increased amount of damage. Light level of 10 is good enough that mobs won't spawn in that area, but will also allow you to decrease further. But in order to get invisible, you have to go to a light level of 4 or lower. Those are the light levels where mobs will have the ability to actually spawn in, so you gotta be careful with that one. But essentially, light level of 15 is your max amount of lighting, that's where you take the most damage. Light level of 10 is where you go semi-transparent and don't take as much damage as normal. And then light level of 4 is when you actually go completely invisible. Anyway, running through the cons, you've got Law Escapee. Your run-in with the village guards has not made your reputation with the golems very friendly. Essentially meaning these golems are pretty likely to attack you on sight. These only count to the ones that are naturally spawned by villagers though. Any ones that are crafted by you directly with iron blocks and a pumpkin head won't touch you because that's how they're programmed. Moving on to Blade and Dagger, you've been born into the Blade and Dagger lifestyle, preventing you the usage of shields. And the last con, you got Heavy Worn. Your body has not adjusted to the nature of heavy armor types. You are more encumbered than most while wearing it. So instead of the normal thing where you're just unable to use the more powerful armors, instead you're just going to be slower and other bits and pieces along those lines when wearing it. Essentially speaking, you just get slowness on diamond and everite armor. There's a little bit of a gripe with it not being like that with gold armor, since technically speaking gold is heavier than diamonds, but I guess it's besides the point. It really doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things. The Diamond Golem, a hardly magical being made of pure diamond. This is of course the Skeppy themed origin. Let's move into the abilities. The first ability for the Diamond Golem is Diamond Skin. Your hard skin makes you incredibly resistant, however you cannot wear any type of armor whatsoever. Essentially speaking, you've got diamond armor by default. Now there are a bit of a con to this. Now first off, you are able to wear elytras with this, but you are unable to have any form of armor enchantments whatsoever, meaning you're stuck with the default diamond level of toughness, and that is that. There is nothing more that you can actually get because you're unable to wear any type of armor. Moving on to the next ability, you've got Cyan Thumb. You can break any form of diamond or obsidian based block without needing a tool whatsoever. Essentially speaking, you still have the default mining times that you would get with using your bare hands on these blocks. You'll just get the actual item. So overall, it is useful in a way, meaning that you don't actually have to worry about having the right pickaxe when you find your first set of diamonds. But when it comes down to this obsidian, ultimately you're just going to want to have a diamond pickaxe anyway, because that's going to be a heck of a load faster. Either way, moving on to the next ability, we've got Porter Pyramid. When you're holding a beacon, everyone within a 20 block radius of you gets the effects of 5 primary powers. This is the reason why Me Too is existing right now. Now the first thing about this one, it actually doesn't exactly work as intended. The person holding the beacon in their hand will get the 5 abilities of jump boost, speed, strength, and resistance, and haze, but no one else around them will. As I threw the beacon over to my other person there just to have them hold it for a split moment, they got given the effects, but I didn't get it myself. They got it myself to throw it back to myself, and I hold it in my main account body where you can actually see it from this end, and you can see that suddenly now I get the effects when I'm holding it in my hand. Overall, it's an ability that's definitely useful in a way, but overall does lack of its need because of the fact that you're going to have it in your either main hand or offhand in order for it to be usable. But either way, moving on to the cons, we've got adamant. You have very specific taste and cannot effectively use tools or weapons that are not made of diamonds. In essence, this makes Neverite completely useless to you entirely because you're actually faster at mining things with your bare hands than what you will be with Neverite tools when it comes down to this. And it also reoccurs when it comes to your weapons. In fact, it makes it so that any form of weapons that aren't actually made of diamond you cannot use whatsoever. As you can see in the recording here, I'm trying to hit myself with a Neverite sword, nothing has happened, I'm clearly swinging it, but the moment I swap to a diamond, I actually successfully hit myself. Essentially speaking, if you're not using diamond tools, don't bother making the tools whatsoever, just use your bare hands, you're better off doing so. Moving on to homesickness, you are unable to sleep at anything higher than 15. Essentially speaking, you just can't sleep anything higher than 15 blocks, but you're also unable to set your spawn on any bed that is placed higher than Y level of 15. And last but not least, for this diamond golem, you've got heavy. You sink in water and you are unable to swim whatsoever. Essentially speaking, it's just kind of like you're walking on normal land, just the fact that you actually need to breathe, and that's about it. Anyway, moving on to the next origin of this pack, the Ether Mode Demon. Essentially speaking, the bad boy Halo themed origin. Running through the description, an ancient demon specialized in both magical and non-magical linguistics. Either way, moving to the abilities, you got the power of friendship. Diamond blocks are your lucky charm. When holding one, you gain luck and regeneration. This is similar to the beacon one from before, where you essentially have to be holding the block in your very hand or your offhand in order for this ability to actually function. Moving on to quick learner, your XP gain is doubled more than normal. Essentially speaking, you get more XP than normal. There's not too much to talk about with this one. Moving on to the next ability, you've got Wordsmith. Gain a random level 1 enchanted book by pressing your primary ability button while holding a book and quill. This power makes you dizzy and tired and it has a very long cooldown. Essentially speaking, after using your primary ability, you have round about a minute of nausea, weakness 2 and slowness 2, which is really painfully annoying. That's roughly around the time it takes for the ability to recharge itself. And you also have a chance of gaining something like the Curse of Vanishing or the Curse of Binding along with this ability as well, so it can be a bit annoying at times. Anyway, moving into your neutral ability, your Demonic Stature. You are approximately a block taller than the regular human and you have 2 extra hearts as well. No explanation needed for this one. Moving on to your cons, you've got Nether Inhabitant. Your natural spawn is going to be in the Nether. This ability in of itself is kind of self-explanatory, and I've also made it pretty clear in the past on why I dislike the Nether spawning, but hey, you kind of got to have one of this ability, and you're most likely going to be playing with this with someone else to have the pairing of the 2 data packs, so I guess it's okay overall. But moving into your last con, you've got Weak Spot. You're vulnerable to diamond weapons. Essentially speaking, Netherite Sword is going to be a lot worse on you than diamond weapons, because the Netherite Sword at default damage with no enchantments and you wearing no armor, you take around 4 hearts of damage, while with a diamond sword you take around 5 hearts of damage. Overall, it makes diamond weapons far more potent against you and far more deadly, and you're going to want to avoid them a lot more often, especially when you're going against the Skeppy counterpart to this set of origin. Showcasing through a custom evolving origin data pack that actually allows for evolutions for a majority of the base origin. This data pack is created by the YouTuber known as iHasName, but I'm also 90% sure that a majority of people who watch my channel also know of iHasName and have probably watched at least one of his custom evolving origin SMP videos in the past. Essentially speaking, today I'm going to be covering and breaking down his data pack and giving you all the information that you need to know about it when running into it. Now first off, let's go over how this works. Now essentially speaking, one thing you can do with origins is you can attach any form of changes to the origin to a certain advance. One origin that I've covered in the past, for example the Cursed Armor one, has been attached to an advancement where it upgrades from using Iron Armor as your main armor source to Netherite Armor when you get your first Ashen Debris. And essentially this data pack here attaches the Ender Dragon freeing the End advancement to a collection of evolutions and style changes to your origins. This does mean that in order for this to actually work for you and for you to evolve your own origin, you need to be the one that lands the final hit on the Ender Dragon. No one else. If someone else lands a final hit, you have to do it all over again, because only the person who lands the final hit on the Ender Dragon will get the Free the End advancement, which is the advancement required for your origins to evolve. And another cool thing about this, if you hit the like button down below, it will actually help YouTube push this video in the algorithm a little more and get more people to see it. Hey, at least I didn't tell you to subscribe at the start of the video. At least give me credit with that one. Anyhow, going in order on how the origins get displayed on the Minecraft mod itself, we start off with the Avian one. One of the other things that this mod does too is when you do evolve, you also have a change in the description. So running through the adapted Avian description, wow, what an achievement. You, a flightless bird of all origins, have managed to defeat the Ender Dragon. You feel your ancestors' pride beaming down upon you, evolving you into the adapted Avian. Running through your new abilities, we start off with Leap of Faith. Maybe you can try and fly now as hard as you can. No, still can't. At least you're making progress. First off, this is an active ability, giving you a secondary ability as the Avian Origin. Now, the idea behind this origin is the fact that you're still attempting to fly, so you've learned how to do a nice, massive jump using the power of your wings and what you've learned from killing the Ender Dragon, but you're still unable to actually fly. Now, when you activate this ability, you will jump around 60 blocks up into the air. That is roughly 3 to 4 times higher than what the Elytrian gets off of their normal jump boost. Let's say if you use this in combo with the Elytrian, you can actually get a really good boost, but you can only use it like, let's say, while runtime when you're in the air, because of the fact that it has such a long cooldown. It counteracts the fact that you do get a giant boost, but with the use of your slow falling you get as the Avian, you get and fly pretty far before you can use it again anyhow. Moving on to your second ability, your primary ability is getting changed to the Broiler Bolt. You can now gain incredible speed at the cost of having to take a quick breather afterwards. Essentially speaking, when you press your primary ability button, you'll be given supersonic speed for an extremely brief amount of time. Essentially speaking, the cooldown of this ability is around 15 seconds long. That is also how long this ability will last on you with its effects. Essentially speaking, around 13 seconds of maximum speed and then 2 seconds of slowness 5. Essentially speaking, it will slow you right back down the moment you hit that cooldown, but the moment that you finish off with your slow down rest moment, you can immediately use the ability again and continue the cycle. This ability can also stack with Soul Speed 3 boots, meaning that you can get some extreme speeds on Soul Soil and Soul Sand. Anyhow, moving on to the next origin in order, we've got the adapted Elytrian. Now, of course, as before, change to the description. Running through it, you and only you shall own the skies now. Killing the dragon has granted you the mastery of your wings, evolving you into the adapted Elytrian. Moving into the added / change abilities, for the Elytrian, there's very small changes here, there's not too many big ones. The first one being that you take slightly less kinetic damage now, which is just being called less kinetic damage. That one is pretty much self-explanatory, you just take a little less damage than before from any form of kinetic sources. But moving into the second ability, you've got the Sonic Boom ability. You've mastered the art to fly, and now while in flight, you're able to grant yourself a secondary boost of velocity. This is essentially speaking your secondary ability. This secondary ability is practically just around level 2 rocket, so it doesn't exactly provide a massive boost, but it actually is pretty useful in the grand scheme of things, considering that it activates far faster than what your other ability tends to do, and it's common enough that you can just use it as a substitute to your rockets. But of course, you can still use rockets in mix with this ability if you really want to have some potent speed and maneuverability as the Elytrian. Anyhow, moving into the next little origin, we have the adapted Shulk Origin. Again, description's been changed. You feel like a new connection has been made between you and the End after killing the Ender Dragon, evolving you into the adapted Shulk. Anyway, moving on to the abilities, you've got Natural Armor Plus. Essentially speaking, the Shulk has a default armor value. This ability just provides a bit more armor than before, essentially speaking, bringing up your total armor value to be roughly around the same as what a full set of iron armor will typically do. But it's this new secondary ability that really shines out when it comes to the Shulk. Fortified Juggernaut. Offense shall pale in comparison to your defense. Retreat into your shell to gain a large amount of resistance in exchange for vision and movement. Essentially speaking, for however long you want to keep that ability activated for, you will have blindness 4, you'll have slowness 6, but you will have resistance 4 as well, meaning that you can tank a lot of damage from a lot of different things, but of course you're unable to move that fast to get away from these sources too easily, and you also can't see too well. Either way, moving on to the adapted Feline. Running through the description, you killed the giant flying mouse. Now you just feel grumpy and aggressive as the adapted Feline. Now the idea I has name was trying to put forth with this variant of this Feline origin was to make it more of a combat oriented origin, considering the fact that it lacks the ability to mine. So with that in mind, let's run through the new abilities. So going through your new abilities, starting off with Serrated Claws, dealing damage with your fist now actually do extra damage upon hits due to your extremely sharp claws. Essentially speaking, you do an extra 2.5 damage per hit now with your fist, but it will only ever affect your fist. If you have any other item in your hand, your damage will go back to default. It's only when you actually have your fist out with nothing in it. And one of the other things you would have noticed in that brief recording there is also the ability Rapid Lacerations. Essentially speaking, the Dragon Rage pours into your claws, and while attacking with your bare fist, your attack speed is actually greatly increased. And to put it down to layman terms for you, essentially speaking, you have the attack speed of the 1.8 days when you're using your bare fist, but if you have anything in your hand, that ability is also lost as well. Probably the main reason for this ability to also exist is just for the sole fact that 2.5 damage extra on your fist isn't exactly enough to convince you to stop using your diamonds or netherite sword, so just giving it so that you also have a greatly increased attack speed to be able to spam with your fist ultimately makes this ability far more useful in combined. Anyhow, let's move on to the adapted Enderian. Again, this has a description that's slightly different to the original one. Let's run through it. After slaying the Ender Dragon, the remorse of slaying your own origin rushes over you like a tidal wave, transforming you into an adapted Enderian. I just realized I said it wrong the first time around. Excuse me, I'm apologizing for that. Essentially speaking, with the two abilities that you get with this one, it kind of matches you more aligned with the actual Enderman form, with the first one being the Eyes of the End. Even tears won't be able to block your vision now. Essentially speaking, every mob has a glowing effect regardless of how far away it is from you. If it's on screen and spawned in the world, you can see it actively because it has the glowing effect on it, kind of like what happens when you hit a mob with the glowing arrow. Moving into your next ability though, you have Arrow Invulnerability. Ancient abilities of the End seep into your mind, granting you complete invulnerability to arrows. Essentially speaking, you've almost completed the full cycle of transforming from a human to a full-on Enderman via the Enderian Origin bloodline. This ability acts exactly like it says it does on the tin. It's not an active ability, it's just something that's just passive. Like you get shot by a skeleton, his arrow's not going to hit you, and it's as simple as that. Now moving on to your high impact origins, we first start off with the Merling. By far one of the most intriguing ones that will lead to a lot of questions on how you would even defeat the Ender Dragon as. Running through the new description, the lengths you must have gone to slay the dragon in a waterless void and become an adapted Merling. Someone seems to have taken notice to your achievements. Now the Merling has 3 different new abilities that you gain when you get the adapted form. Running through the first one, you have Reinforced Scales. Your scales seem a little bit tougher now since you've slaved the dragon, giving you roughly about 3 bars of armor. Moving into the next ability, you've got Poseidon's Tack. The gods seem to have noticed your accomplishes, and now whenever you hit something, a trident will come to strike down from the heavens onto whatever you've chosen to hit. Essentially speaking, whatever mob you hit or whatever you hit in general, a trident will come down and hit them in the head, as doing some extra damage on top of what you already do by yourself, which will be pretty damn useful when it comes to fighting off mobs, especially if you've got stuck on land for a brief moment of time. But considering you might get stuck on land, running through the third ability known as Neptune's Blessing. Essentially speaking, Neptune has answered your call. You can now summon your rain at will, but you can only use this ability once every 24 hours. Mind you, the rain will last a few hours or a few different days depending on what it takes and how often people sleep at night, but essentially speaking, you can summon rain so you can walk on land for the first time without having to worry too much about having any form of regeneration type thing to avoid suffocating in the air. Now of course I had to use a command to actually summon the rain myself to show what it looks like, because I'm not waiting the entire 24-hour period for this to actually recharge. But have I ever mentioned how beautiful this shader looks when I'm actually in weather of any sorts in the Minecraft game? Just for a quick bit of information, I use the BSL shaders in most videos. Anyhow, moving into your next adapted origin, we've got the adapted BlazeBorn. Incredible. After slaying that beast, you have evolved into an adapted Blaze. This power, it feels good. It feels reborn. It feels ablaze. A meme aside, this one's going to be a bit of an interesting one. First off, we have 2 very basic movement abilities. You got Featherweight, you fall gently to the ground as a feather would unless you're sneaking, kind of similar to how the Avian has as well as Tailwind, you're slightly a bit quicker on foot than most others are. But moving into a new active ability, you have Dante's Inferno. Essentially, burn brighter than the sun. While on fire, you can release a fiery nova that sets everything near you on fire. Essentially speaking, what it does it sends around 8 fireballs out from you that goes all the way around in all directions from you, kind of in like a small circle, and sets alight anything around you as long as you're on fire. So standing in lava, you can use this ability and burn a lot of things nearby. And then moving into the last ability for the BlazeBorn, you've got Ascent. You can fly, well, sort of. You can use your primary ability to ascend. Essentially speaking, it's very similar to how the B Origin's levitation works. Practically speaking, it gives you levitation that you have the ability to turn on and off. Again, this makes it so that shulker boxes won't actually give you the levitation effect, mainly because you have the ability to just deactivate it yourself. Either way, moving on to the adapted Phantom, you are slaying the terror of the skies and you feel stronger as the darkness enshrouds around you. Running through the new abilities, first off we've got Shadow Riata. You gain extreme buffs when surrounded with darkness. Essentially speaking, when you're in the darkness, you'll get Speed 1, Regeneration 1, and Strength 2, but the moment you leave the darkness, these abilities will wear off immediately. Honestly, it's going to be quite a useful boost when fighting mobs at nighttime, as well as doing some caving and other bits and pieces like that. Moving on to your new ability, you have the ability Phantom Sail. Slaying the dragon has granted you the ability of flight while you're phantomized. Essentially speaking, this just gives you the ability to swim in the air like the air is water, kind of similar to how we've seen it being implemented in many other origins in the past, like the Herobrine one, where you can fly by swimming in the air. This origin is created by the user known as Sad from the Origins Discord server. This data pack also functions on 1.16.5. I'm not 100% sure on how it would go on 1.17, but I'm using it in 1.16.5 in this video. Anyway, moving into the description of this ability, a bow user who controls the wind, also the current mortal version of Baboas in the Animo Aron. I am also 90% sure that I completely stuffed up saying a majority of the words in that description, but hey, that's just how it goes sometimes. Either way, let's get started by running through the abilities. Starting off with the not efficient ability, you cannot use swords, axes, shields, and tridents whatsoever. So from testing, you can still actively use all of these items, but both swords and axes will not deal any damage to anything you hit. Essentially speaking, you won't hit anything at all. Shields don't seem to actively function properly. You can block, but it doesn't actually block anything, and you just can't hit anything physically with the trident, but you can still throw the trident and deal damage. You can also hit the like button down below because it helps the video do better in the algorithm. Hey, I didn't tell you to subscribe, I just told you to leave a like. But subscribing is also helpful too. Moving on to your next ability, you've got Archer. You can use bows and crossbows to their maximum output. Essentially speaking, you just get a slight boost in damage when it comes to using crossbows and bows. It's not really too heavy of a boost, but it's like enough at least to be noticeable. Moving on to the next ability, Memories of Regret. The never reminds you from Karahya. The memories make you weaker. This says exactly what it does in the box you had, and then ever you get weakness. Moving to your next ability, Skyward Sonnet. Zero wind upon all hives and songs fly. Bear these earthwalkers up into the sky. Brilliant rhyming scheme, by the way. This is honestly a really cool primary ability. Essentially speaking, you press your primary ability and you'll be sent up to the skies with levitation, going around 50 blocks into the air, then given a brief moment of slow falling before you get dropped back to the ground. One thing to note is you will take fall damage if you do hit the ground and not hit water. And then another very interesting thing about it is that if there's any mobs close to you, including a massive horde of zombies, everything will float up into the air and drop back down and take full damage and most likely die. It is a really good ability in order to get out of any ambush situations on above ground. Moving into the next ability, you've got Splitting Gale. Holding a bow and sneaking, you prepare an aim shot, firing 3 arrows at high speeds when you left click. Because of iframes, only one arrow can hit an entity at a time. So the beauty behind this, these arrows are glowing arrows. Essentially speaking, when you hit a mob or anything with them and they survive, they will be glowing so you can actually see them far more clearly on the map. And this actually means that you can, with a crossbow, you can do this ability as well with a normal bow, and both of them will shoot 3 arrows from your hand when you use your left click functionality, when you use your hit functionality. But then you can also use the right click on a crossbow to have a 4th shot go after the mob as well, which ultimately leads to a really cool combo ability that you can have with this ability. Moving on to the next ability, we've got Stolen Genosis. Mobs deal twice as much damage towards you, and you also have less health with 8 hearts total. Essentially speaking, this is an overall debuff towards you because you also have less hearts and you also take more damage from mobs as well, which ultimately isn't exactly great. Moving on to the next ability, you've got 5-star. You are a 5-star character. You have one of the best weapons in the entire game because you're the main DPS. Essentially speaking, you spawn with both for bow and an arrow. From what I can gather, this bow is pretty much a maxed out bow with infinity and doesn't take any form of durability damage either. Overall, it's a really powerful bow, but the big caveat with it is if you die and lose it, you permanently lose it because you don't get given a one every time you spawn. You only start with the one that you spawn and that's it. If you lose the one you started with, game over. It's like that's it, no more. Moving on to your next ability, you've got DPS artifacts. Your artifacts have been solely optimized for damage, so you don't have any defense whatsoever, meaning that you cannot wear any armor that's better than chainmail. I mean, this ability does exactly what it says on the tin. You just can't wear any armor better than chainmail. There's really not too much more information towards that one. But moving on to your next ability, you've got winged. You have an elytra wings by default without needing to equip any. Again, I'm 99.9% sure that all of you guys already understand what this means for you. You just have elytra wings from the start, that's it. Moving on to the next set of abilities, you've got swirl. The wind surrounding you makes the elements spread far more easier than what they would normally. Starting off with the pyro one, when on fire, you apply the pyro element to entities that you hit as long as that you burn. Essentially speaking, with this ability, you can set things on fire whilst you're on fire, but reminder, you still do take damage from fire. Moving on to cryo, when in a cold biome, you apply a slowness to entities upon hit. Essentially, this one just gives what it exactly says on the tin. You hit something in a cold biome like a taiga biome or the mountains or anything that's cold, you do just give them slowness. Moving into your next one, you've got electro. When it rains, you can apply the electro element, which deals damage over time. Essentially speaking, this ability kind of acts like a poison except for the fact that it can kill entities upon damage, as well as it does an average on 5 hits before the ability runs out. And Wind's Grand Ode fires off an arrow made of countless color-sending winds, creating a huge amino explosion where it lands. This can hurt you a lot. This is your secondary ability and it can do a lot of damage when it hits. This also has a very long cooldown of roughly a couple of minutes before you can use it again, but again, you've got to be super careful what you do with it. This explosion does what is the equivalent to a supercharged creeper explosion upon impact, meaning that if it's near you, it can do a super metric ton of damage, as well as a lot of damage to the landscape, and potentially one-shot kill you if you're not careful at all. The Creeper Master. Now this is a 2-impact based origin created by the Discord user Nagasti. Anyhow, this is an origin made for 1.16.5 version of Minecraft, and you do not require any other mods to run with this one. Anyhow, running through the description of this origin, throughout the years of training, you figured out how to conjure creepers out of thin air. As you've probably already gathered by now, this isn't just an ordinary creeper-based origin, this is where you are literally the puppet master of creepers. Anyway, let's get started with the abilities. Moving to the first ability, we've got Creeper Conjure. Throughout countless months of settling creepers, you have managed to understand the ways to create creepers. Now, this primary ability is very interesting indeed. Essentially speaking, when you press your primary ability, you will spawn 4 creepers surrounding you. These creepers will immediately explode or start their timer down to explode. Essentially speaking, when you use this ability, you kind of want to move away from them as soon as you possibly can because the 4 creepers there are enough to actually kill you if you don't have any form of armor on. But if you have armor on and can survive the blast, you can actually use it to launch yourself up in the air for, let's say, an example where you have gotten yourself an elytra. It's a free starting boost. Another cool thing about this ability is if you press the like button down below, these creepers won't explode immediately on you. Yes, I just asked you to hit the like button. I didn't ask you to subscribe, but you can also do that too. That'd be helpful because we're trying to get to 100k. Moving on though. Anyhow, moving on to the next ability, you've got Fragile. Your years of studying autonomy and cellular makeup of creepers has left your body way out of shape in comparison to the normal Minecraft player. Practically speaking, you have 2 less hearts than the average player, going from 10 hearts to 8. Adding on the fact that you'd still take a good amount of damage from creepers, having less overall health just make it a bit more of a pain for you to deal with, eh? Anyhow, moving into your next ability, you've got Self-Destruct. When you're about to die but you want to go out for bang, hit your secondary key to explode. I don't know what else you were expecting with this origin. I mean, you're meant to be a creeper, of course, well, you're the master of creepers, but of course you have the ability to self-destruct. Essentially speaking, it's kind of like the B origins commit suicide type thing where you just press a simple button and you die. Just this time around you explode and leave a lot of crater damage around and actually hurt anything around you like that as well. And hey, even if you do it in combination with your actual creeper ability, you can do a lot of damage to anything around you and of course leave a massive asshole. Another interesting piece of information to keep in mind when using your suicide button, it actually is counted as a charged creeper explosion. So let's say for example you explode your creepers that you spawn, you can actually get yourself a creeper head, and this also continues to work with skeletons, zombies, and everything else that you can get heads from via a charged creeper explosion. Ultimately you can use this ability to get to a pretty cool item. Moving on to the next ability, you've got Demolitionist. After your years of studying creepers and explosions of all types and kinds, you have figured out a way to avoid some of the damage done by these explosions. One thing you've got to make sure you keep in mind with this one, it only gives you a bit of resistance to explosives overall. If you take damage from a several collection of creepers or even by one creeper up in close range, you will still die from it because you also have less hearts than normal. But if you're wearing some armor and bits and pieces on those lines, you will actually survive through a lot more explosions than what you normally would. Overall, this ability is pretty mixed in comparison to the rest of them, considering the fact that you have less hearts than the normal Minecraft player. You don't exactly have too much of enough of an explosion resistance to actually survive a creeper explosion if you need to, because you'll still die by a creeper at pretty much point blank range. Anyway, moving on to the next ability, you've got Untrained. After how long you studied those creepers for, you've actually lost all your touch with all ranged weapons of all types and functions. I mean, I'm 99.9% sure you'll probably understand how this one works. Essentially speaking, you're just unable to use a bow and you're unable to use a crossbow. It's very simple like that, and overall that is definitely an overall big damage nerf in considering, but you do have the ability to explode people who ever dare mess with you, so I guess it's a win-lose situation here. I mean, you have to sacrifice something for the gain of another. Anyhow, we might be starting an SMP server very soon with my Discord server, but in order to join it, you will have to become a $2 member of this channel. Yes, I know it's $2, but it's kind of one of those things. I don't want to have a public server because I don't have the time to properly maintain it. Based upon Sonic the Hedgehog. This origin is created by the Discord user known as Exiled. This is actually version 3 of this origin mod, as well as there's also a planned future of many different evolution paths that you can take as Sonic, and he'll explain the details on a later date when he's ready to actually release that variant of it. More important information, this mod does require the extra keybinds mod as well in order to take advantage of all the actual abilities of this, which is a plus and a disadvantage at the same time depending on what you think. Also, this is only for version 1.16.5. You might be able to get it to work in 1.17, but it's made specifically for 1.16.5 at the current point in time. And that rhymed. Anyway, running through the description, become the descendant of Sonic the Hedgehog. Run with the winds or run faster than the winds. It's up to you. How to evolve? You summon the Wither. So there is at least one evolution that we'll go through in this video, but the rest of them will either be explained by the creator in a pinned comment down below, or we'll just see it at a later date. Either way, let's get started with the abilities. The first ability that we'll be looking at is the ability called Speed. Speed is in your nature. Sprint to gain extra speed. This is quite similar to how the Speedrunner main ability works. When you start to run around, your speed builds up, and then you get to a certain point where you're as fast as you're gonna go. With the Sonic one here, you'll pretty much take a few moments after starting to sprint to speed up to the actual speed you're going to max out at, and then you'll stay at that speed. This is a much controllable speed that is also fairly decently fast at the same time. Moving on to the second ability, we've got Homing Dash. Due to your ancestor being Sonic the Hedgehog, you gain a deviation of the homing attack called the Homing Dash. This boosts you into the air about 10 blocks. Essentially speaking, you jump yourself up around 10 blocks, which is really cool overall. This could be really useful if, let's say, you have an Elytra of sorts or many other different pieces along those lines, as well as it works really well together with the next ability that we'll go over in a moment. Speaking of the next ability, we've got the ability known as Boost. Boost yourself forward by around 8 blocks, which is set to your secondary key. So when using this ability, you will go forward around 8 blocks using this boost. But a little bit of a quirk that comes with this, if you direct yourself straight up, you'll still go 8 blocks forward, but you'll also go up into the air by a lot as well, but you'll still only go 8 blocks forward. You see what I'm coming at here? You can still only go 8 blocks forward, but it doesn't matter how you get that 8 blocks forward, you just go 8 blocks forward. So you can jump up extraordinarily high, but you will only ever go 8 blocks forward. Then put this in combination with the first ability that we just talked about, where you jump up super high, you can pretty much fly over a jungle with ease without even needing an Elytra. So that's slightly highly overpowered ability or overtuned ability aside, moving to the next one, we've got Sonic Wind. When pressing your Centauri key, which is essentially one of your other extra keys from the extra keybind keys, I will go over and show off which one this one is in a moment. It shoots an arrow of wind. When coming in contact with an entity, it will launch them up into the air. Well, now I ask you this question, have you ever seen pigs fly? Because this essentially can do that, and they come back down and they're dead. Well, that's a massive shame, but this is a beautiful ability. Just by the simple fact that you can just shoot anything and they're just gonna float up into the air at a great speed and then come dropping right back down and die like they never did anything like they never existed in the first place. Don't mind the stutter. Anyway, moving into the next ability, you've got Double Jump. You can double jump like Sonic can do in some of the Sonic games. It's not always an available feature, but hey, they throw it into this one because why not, really? Using this double jump, you're able to jump up around 3.5 blocks high. Any higher than that, you won't actually make it, but any lower than that, you'll be perfectly fine. But 3.5 blocks of a jump by default without the potion of leaping is extremely useful, because when we add that in, you have the ability to jump up to 4.5 blocks high, which is really useful when considering the use of jump potions aren't really that great half the time, because the 2-block boost isn't exactly too useful half the time. Moving on to your next ability, you've got Blue Skin. Much like your ancestors' blue fur, you now have a blue colored skin. I mean, do I need to explain this one to you? Either way, moving on to the next ability, we've got Speed for Power. In exchange for a universal level of speed, your arms are now thinner than before. Therefore, you are permanently weakened in comparison to everything else. You've essentially just got like permanent weakness 1 on you without the actual ability being present, meaning that if someone does splash you with weakness 1 or weakness 2, you'll get those effects on top of your already weakened player. Either way, moving on to your next ability, you've got Can't Swim. You cannot swim at all when submerged in water, so you will act like you are out of water when you actually go into the water. We've seen this ability being used in many different occasions. Essentially speaking, when you're in the water, you'll sink down to the bottom like a rock, and you'll practically be walking around underwater in the same vein you would do when you're on land. And yeah, moving into the next ability, you've got Unwieldy. Essentially speaking, the way your hands are formed provide no way of holding the shield upright, and practically you can just not block using a shield. We've seen this type of thing many times. It's the same deal. You can't use a shield to block damage. And the final main ability, Acrobatics. You never take fall damage no matter which height you fall from. I mean, this type of ability is kind of essential considering that 2 of your abilities allow you to go super high up in the air. If you take any form of damage whatsoever from fall damage, those abilities are practically useless. Now, super funny thing, you evolve when you place down the final thing to activate the Wither. You evolve into the supersonic form without needing to defeat the Wither, but you kinda gotta have to unless you go spawn it far away from where it actually matters, and you can just ignore its existence for a while. Anyhow, moving on to the abilities of the supersonic gauge, you get Speed and Speed. You tense up your body by vibrating in place at high speeds, making your body tougher. You now have 5 armor points by default, and you also gain Flight. You now have the ability to fly. It's set to your Tenuary key, which is essentially speaking, this flight just allows you to hover up into the air with flames following behind you. You must be pressing this other key button in order to actually fly. The moment you let go, you're no longer flying. But in turn, with your new abilities, you do actually lose your ability to do double jumps, as well as your ability to shoot extra arrows that are like the wind. Essentially speaking, you gain 2 new abilities in exchange for 2 of your other abilities. But at least the way that you have to avoid getting these abilities in the first place is just to have someone else start the Wither for you, because you have to actually place the final thing itself in order to get the advancement that gets you to evolve. Cursed Origins mod for expansion pack for the Origin mod. Essentially speaking, the idea behind this set of Origins is a bit of unbalanced and funny mess of Origins in order for you to have a bit more fun when playing around with Origins in Minecraft. How many times do you think I just said Origins in that sentence alone? Let me know in the comments down below. This Origin mod adds in 3 new Origins, 2 ones that are very easy to get to right from the start, and 1 hidden one that requires you to use a command in-game to actually get access to the Origin. Either way, let's get started with the Glass Golem 2, Electric Boogaloo. Just for a quick reference, essentially one of the other mainstream Origin expansion packs used to have a Glass Golem based Origin that got removed in a later update. Essentially speaking, this is just a remake of it, as well as it's slightly weirder than before. Running running through the description, constructed from the remains of the first iteration of the glass golem, this reincarnation of the golem packs a lot of power behind its swings. However, the framework of which it was based on remains broken as it was before. Let's run through the abilities. Running through the first ability, we've got glass. Your transparent self make you die in one hit. Yes, there is a bit of profanity in this mod, just a word of warning now. I'm not actually going to say it, I'm going to use another word instead because YouTube doesn't like it, but hey. Essentially speaking, you are transparent and you look like you're a piece of glass, well at least on your head, the rest of you is just transparent with nothing else to it, and you also die in a single hit. A single hit is all it takes for you to be killed. Moving into your next ability, you've got cannon. Due to your massive amount of strength, all types of damage you deal will kill anything in one blow. Did you notice the pun between these two abilities? Glass cannon. Well, it's exactly what you are. You are a literal glass cannon. Practically speaking, mutual one-shots all the way around. You can one-shot anything, anything can one-shot you. You get the point of that. It's essentially speaking one-hit kill for everyone. Well, at least when in relation to you. And moving into the final ability, you might have already noticed by the death messages I got in the first bit that this origin also has a bit of comedic with itself. Comedy. You make a satisfying glass-breaking noise when you get hurt. Well, you really can't get hurt, you just die and there's no other way about it, but hey, just have a good listen to it, why don't you? If you found that absolutely smashing, make sure to hit the like button down below and smash that subscribe button. Yeah, I'll show myself out the door, don't worry about that. Moving on to the next origin, we've got Minotaur. Forget meat, eat grass. Originating from the Begalian cow, you're forced to be reckoned with within the lawn mowing industry. This is so damn stupid, I swear. Anyhow, moving into your abilities, you've got mow hay. You're able to eat grass and variants of grass while not holding anything in your main hand. Do I really need to explain to you on how this stupid ability works? You're practically a sheep, like, you just eat grass, like, you eat grass, you know? You can eat the long bits of grass, you can eat the grass straight off the flipping dirt itself. I mean, go ahead, do what you want, eat that grass. If you can't tell already, I'm taking this a little less seriously than normal because these are already meme origins as it is, but moving on to the next ability, you've got Delicious Dairy. You and other players can milk yourself with a bucket. So in order to milk yourself with this ability, you essentially just use your primary ability to put milk into the bucket. There's not much more to it. You can see it in the clip here where I'm just endlessly doing it. You can just endlessly milk yourself, drink that milk, and then do it again. So, I mean, it's got to be useful in cases where you've got the bad omen on you. You can pretty much get rid of it quick, smart, but it's just stupid. Anyhow, moving into your next ability, you've got axe proficiency. All axe damage is increased depending upon what axe you're using. Okay, to break this down for you a little bit, when it comes down to weaker health mobs, let's say for example I use here a husk. All your axes when you use crit hits will two-shot them aside from your netherite axe which will one-shot him. Your wooden, stone and golden axe will three-shot the husk, while your iron and diamond and netherite will two-shot the husk when you're not doing crit attacks. Another bit of interesting information is that the wooden axe also does as much damage as the netherite sword, just it has half the swing time it takes to actually go do it. Essentially speaking, you can use your netherite sword twice as often as your wooden axe, but the wooden axe does twice the amount of damage as a netherite sword. Practically speaking, a wooden axe is about as useful as the netherite sword with this proficiency. And moving on to your next ability, you've got calcium. You're immune to all status effects. Do you realize what that means? It means the ability to milk yourself is entirely useless, to you at least. Because it's not like you're going to get the status effects that are going to want you to milk yourself so you can get rid of them because you can't get them in the first place. Pretty brilliant if you ask me. I'm sorry, I'm just like, can't take it seriously when these are the type of things, but this is a fun video to make, by the way. It's just like, I'm laughing a bit more because it's so stupid. Moving on to the final ability for the Minotaur, you've got the cake is a lie. You cannot digest normal sources of food. I mean, you can eat grass, that's all you need to do in life. Eat grass, nothing else, nothing more. Moving into the items that lead you to the secret origin and lead you to its existence. Again, you're just going to have to put in the command of /origin set and then just find it in there. But there's also a music disc that comes with this mod that also relates to the fact of what you're going to be when you find out the secret origin.
I'm a creeper, Minecraft Grim Reaper, blowing up blocks like Al-Qaeda. I'm not a creature that'll eat you, but I'll leave you petrified. Peach of my mind, peace of mind, sweeper. Taking on a brick and you die in a deep. I'll find your mind and my mind. Reading on the mind is finders, keepers.
Anyway, moving on, we've got the literal Creeper Origin. I'm a creeper, Minecraft Grim Reaper, blowing up blocks like ALQ. You are so good at blowing up blocks that you spread your influence to other living organisms. And yes, you get a music disc with Dan Bull's Creeper song, you get the gist of it. I mean, I probably play it for a few moments unless it's going to get me copyrighted, then I didn't, but hey, we'll find out, eh? Moving into your next ability, you've got Explosion.gif. You have the ability to explode, infecting any players caught in the explosion. Essentially speaking, you explode, kind of like a creeper, just your radius of your explosion is bigger than a normal creeper's explosion radius, but it's smaller than what a charged creeper's explosion radius is. It's kind of like in the middle ground, but leaning more towards the creeper's normal explosion size. And essentially speaking, with the infection part, any player that gets hit with the explosion now have the ability to explode themselves. But this does replace their main ability until they do choose to explode. Essentially speaking, they won't be forced to explode immediately, but if you do want to use your main ability ever again, you're kind of going to have to explode and sacrifice the explosion in order to use your main ability again if you have one. Moving into the next ability, you've got Allophobia. Being near cats or ocelots weakens you and makes you faster at the same time. Essentially speaking, you're scared of cats. Run away from them or you'll be continuously weak. But also you can take advantage of them to run away faster because you get speed essentially. Also another interesting piece of information, if you're near any form of cats as well, you're unable to explode whatsoever. Your main ability of exploding gets completely disabled entirely. If you are near a cat, you cannot explode whatsoever. As well as you get weakness, as well as you get sped up, which you'll realize that it's really good to have that extra speed because you'll realize with this next ability where you have powerful stride, you are unable to sprint whatsoever. Practically speaking, a cat might possibly be helpful for you because you get a speed boost when near them because you're unable to sprint whatsoever, but you also have to think about the downsides where you get weakness as well as the fact that you lose your ability to actually explode as well, meaning that you lose like the main things about this origin, but you also counteract the other con of this origin. It's kind of one of those things where you lose a few things to get a good thing back out of it, but overall, are you going to find it worth to be near a cat just so you can walk a bit faster? Probably not. In fact, you're probably not going to even have a cat near you most of the time because it's just overall annoying to be weakened in general and losing your main ability because you're near a damn cat. The Glitcher Origin, created by the Discord user known as Luco Raptor from the Origins Discord server. This is version 2 of the Origin that was released yesterday, and this is also another one of those Origins that has been requested by a fair few of you guys in the comments down below. This Origin is made for 1.16.5, you might be able to get it to work in 1.17, but I'll just make sure you understand and know that this was created for 1.16.5. This is a 2-impact based Origin, and running through the description, classic human but with glitched effects. Practically the idea behind this Origin is that you're a glitched human of sorts with a lot of weird genetic defects and a lot of weird oddities that make it so that your Origin abilities are very glitched and weird and wacky in comparison to what the normal human in Minecraft would typically have. Either way, let's get started with the abilities. Running through the first ability, we've got error_health.exe. Your health is glitched and does not regenerate naturally. So practically this just avoids the fact that you can't regen your health based upon your hunger, but you can still use health potions as well as golden apples and regeneration in order to regen your health. You just won't get health naturally via your hunger. Moving into the next ability, you've got glitched skin. Your skin looks a bit weird with a slight red color. And if you don't want your skin to be permanently glitched, make sure to hit the like button down below and make sure to hit that subscribe button as well, as it's extremely useful and helpful to me. Either way, continue. You've got a slight red color to your skin, there are some glitchy particles coming off of you, that's about it. That's pretty understandable and you can see it in the clip. And to follow along with that ability, you've also got stuck at 90%. Your health doesn't load correctly and therefore you're stuck at 9 hearts of health instead of the normal 10. I just like the creativity behind the descriptions of this Origin so far. Like, it's just pretty nice instead of saying, oh, you got less health because you got less health, you know, because you're smaller or something. It's like, you're stuck at 90% because you didn't load correctly, haha. Like, it's actually somewhat interesting, these Origins description thus far. Anyway, moving to the next ability, you've got laggy moves. Due to being super unstable, you're slightly faster than the normal Minecraft player. I'm pretty sure we've all had that one experience, whether it be in Minecraft or GTA 5 or any other of the popular multiplayer games where there is some form of racing involved, where you see players somehow pass you and then disappear ahead of you because they're just lagging about, going frame by frame, jumping in and out of existence, going faster and faster because they're somewhat glitching out according to their internet. In reality, they're not really going that much faster than you, they're going at the normal speed they would normally, but because they're lagging so much, it doesn't exactly perceive to be be like that towards you. Which is honestly really cool how they've decided to decipher and translate this origin into an ability. The ability that you're just super unstable, you're slightly faster, you're perceived to be slightly faster. Well, you're actually slightly faster, but you're also perceived to be slightly faster. Moving into the next ability, shields are not as good as firewalls. You are unable to use shields whatsoever, because firewalls are better than shields. Even though they do effectively nothing in Minecraft, but screw it, firewalls are better than shields. This stated fact by this origin, because yes. I mean, I know I'm joking around there, it's just like, I understand it, it's pretty funky, and it's a really interesting way of doing that. I thought like for a firewall it would maybe, instead of a shield, you'll get a permanent defense boost or something like that. Like you'd get something different to interpret as some form of firewall, but hey, this works, this is fine. Moving to the next ability, you've got virus defense. You have natural protection. That is me right now after realizing if I just read the next ability instead of making my little half judgment there and saying, oh, why not add shields or defense boost instead of removing a shield via firewall? And here we are, you get a defense boost. My god. Just for a quick reference, I actually record this video in a way of going over, I do the ability, then I actually go over, play around with it, and then give my opinion on it and a bit of information on it. Then I record the bit for the next ability, so on, so on. So I do each ability individually on its own, so you get the merits on its own. So yeah, excuse me, I kind of don't want to edit that, but hey, you get to hear the process of me doing stupid. Okay, back to the information. Practically speaking, you get 5 armor platings worth of defense, which is honestly really good to start off with. That's practically almost full iron armor right there you get by default at the beginning, which you then can, of course, can increase based upon what type of armor you get moving forward. Now, one bit of information that I feel like a lot of people still don't understand half the time is that armor in Minecraft will only ever go up to a certain percentage before it gets maxed out, unless the mod is specifically made to break those limits, which the Origins mod is not done in that way to do so. Meaning that the armor will only ever be maxed out at the normal limit that diamond armor / netherite armor has by default, regardless if it gets maxed out by wearing iron armor, or even lower. Overall, just makes the necessity of going to diamond or netherite armor be more focused on potential durability gains rather than the actual armor gain that you get from those two new armor sets. Either way, moving to the next ability, you've got 9745_leg.exe. You do not take fall damage. Overall, considering the fact that you do not naturally regenerate health via your hunger, this is pretty useful to have, considering the fact that fall damage is the most common form of damage that you'll take in Minecraft, at least in the early game, because when you're running around, jumping around, doing all those bits and pieces, you'll often take like a 1 or half a heart worth of fall damage because you just so happen to jump over a gap that required to give you the 4-block drop, which is enough for fall damage, which isn't even that much, all things considered. Moving into the next ability called Immune, you're immune to weakness, poison, wither, and sadly for you, fire resistance. This is an interesting subset of abilities to be completely immune to. Weakness, poison, and wither kind of makes sense as those are your debuffs that you kind of don't want to be dealing with too often. But the debuff of not even being able to have fire resistance is an interesting one to say the least. Overall, this just means that you're unable to swim in lava, you can't really do nether raiding too easily because you have to worry about blazes catching you on fire and having to deal with the fire damage overall, and it'd just be a bit more safer overall. This also means that if you drop into a lava pit, you're screwed because there is no way that you can counteract it, not even with a god apple. Moving into the next ability, you've got your backup reload. Using your primary ability key, you're able to glitch back some of your health back into an existence by reformatting and going back to a previous backlog save that you're able to glitch into existence that doesn't get quite corrupted. Practically speaking, going into more detailed terms, you have an ability that allows you to heal yourself overall, which is pretty useful to say the least, considering that you lose your ability of natural regeneration, and it's not like you're going to be able to get healing potions, regeneration potions, or golden apples too easily in the early game, unless you encounter a village with a flipping potion stand, but then you still need to get some blaze powder in order to run it in the first place. Which, quick question, is it just me, or do a lot of abilities that give you the ability to heal yourself often counter it by removing your natural ability to heal yourself using food, as well as the other way around? When you remove the natural regeneration, the Origin tends to also give you the ability to heal yourself without it. Another note with this ability, when you do heal yourself, you'll also be given nausea for around 8 seconds before that wears off, so overall it can be useful in sticky situations, but that nausea is a bit of an annoyance, so I guess it's up to you on your own opinion on whether you would use it in the middle of a fight or not. Moving into the next ability, you've got Wrong Place. You can reach further because the program thinks that you're closer, kind of in a similar vein to how you got extra speed because the program's kind of glitched out and you're a bit laggy. You just have the ability to also reach further than a normal Minecraft player. It's roughly about an extra block or two, so it's not exactly that much of a drastic difference, but it can be pretty useful in building situations, meaning that you don't have to build up one block high just to do your roof or other bits and pieces along those lines that could be quite similar. Moving into the next ability, you've got FPS drops. You take more damage from fire than what the average Minecraft player will do. Now you see where the ability of being immune to fire resistance may come into a massive pain in the backside for you, because you now take more damage from fire and you're unable to become immune from fire, so you best be avoiding lava and blazes and all those annoying pieces of annoyances in order to not take extra damage, or hope and pray to God that you don't die immediately when you touch lava. The Upper Moon based origin created by the Discord user Marthrick commits in your bar Demon Slayer Upper Moon. I definitely butchered that and I highly apologize to those people who will be hurt by me butchering that. This origin is created for 1.16.5. You might be able to get it to work on 1.17. Some things might potentially break crossing versions, but most of the time these data packs tend to be mostly fine, but sometimes they do have bugs you have to deal with. Running through the quick credits that the guy leaves here first, the currently time ability we'll go through later. It's a power edited directly from the strength of Starborn that a Slayer created. Siphoning Strike was from Mimic Harrier from Eru. We got Sullen Creatures from Never Feed from Vogueslish, and we got Strong Punch from the Raptor origin made by Mole. Pretty much this origin is borrowing some abilities from other origins, but there are some abilities in this origin that are also created particularly for this origin in particular. Anyhow, the Upper Moon origin is a 3 impact origin, meaning that it has the most impact upon your gameplay experience. Running through the description, hundreds of years ago you used to be a human, but one day a mysterious man gave you a choice between dying or being a demon, and so you chose. Now before we get into this video, there's a lot of you guys who watch these videos, and I highly appreciate if any of you guys go down there, hit the subscribe button down below and hit the like button, as it helps the videos do better in the algorithm. And there's over 100,000 of you guys who watch a lot of videos on my channel, so I'd appreciate it if even a few of you guys would subscribe. Either way, without further ado, let's get into the Origin's abilities. Going to our first ability, you have your Blood Boost. You release your demonic power to heal yourself and become stronger. This is your primary ability. Now the cooldown to this ability itself takes a fair portion of time. I think from what I was going off of when I was messing around setting up the intro that failed, it took around a minute to 2 minutes to actually recharge the entire ability, which is fair enough considering when you do use the ability, you get speed 3, you get strength 3, you get regeneration 5, and you also get health boost 3. Health boost 3 gives you around 7 new hearts on top of your normal health bar. Practically speaking, it's a really good buff when you're in the middle of battle or in the middle of anything that's important that you might be about to die to, because not only do you get a massive regen boost, you get a bit of a health boost, you get a bit of a speed buff, and you get a bit of a strength boost. Overall, meaning that this ability is extremely powerful and extremely useful for when you need it, and personally I think it's on a long enough cooldown that it's not going to be too overpowered. Maybe. Moving into your next ability, you've got Explosive Blood. The demonic art is to make your blood explode. This is your secondary ability. So what happens around this is basically you get the equivalent of a TNT explosion, mainly because it gets all your blocks back that you destroy, because with a creeper explosion, when you use to do that, the creeper doesn't actually give all the blocks that are there back when you explode them. Instead, you'll just get like a handful of them back. Practically speaking, you get a nice beautiful explosion, but at the same time, you also get a brief few seconds of instant damage ticking, as well as a bit of resistance as well. You don't take any damage from the TNT explosive itself. You do take knockback though, but you don't take any damage from it. But then you've also got the instant damage ticking down right after you use your explosion at the same time, so you still do take damage from it. It's just in a bit of a weirder way than what you would think. Ultimately, this ability is very interesting and very weird at the same time. There are a little bit of quirks to it that I'm slightly confused about, but either way, let's move on to the next ability. Moving into the next ability, you've got Photoallergic. You begin to burn in the daylight if you're not invisible. Now, I just want to make sure that you understand this clearly. You do not have the ability to go invisible via an ability. This just means an invisibility potion to avoid burning up in the day. Practically speaking, this ability is as simple as it sounds. You burn when you head out into the sunlight whatsoever. When you're underneath blocks throughout the daytime, it doesn't matter. You won't get burnt by them. As well as if you drink an invisibility potion and head out into the sun, you will not get burned either. You can do as much as you want out in the sun while you're invisible and you won't be affected by the burning. The next ability, however, will will still affect you regardless if you're invisible out in the sun or visible in the sun. You've got Solemn Creature. You are weaker when exposed to daylight, receiving weakness 1 and slowness 2 effect. This is a stacking at 1 second, so the moment you leave the sun you will immediately be removed of these debuffs in the first place, so obviously it's not too painful to deal with. But as I said a moment ago, even if you're wearing an invisibility potion when you go out into the sun, you will still be given these abilities, because quite frankly, even though you get it when you're already burning up, it doesn't matter so much because you're burning up and you're gonna die anyhow, so this is still just another disadvantage of going out of the day if you avoid the first burning disadvantage. Moving into your next ability, you've got Insomnia. As a demon, you only know kill and will not rest. Practically speaking, you're like, wait, what is this silly thing called resting? What is this sleep? All I know is I'm awake 24/7, and that is all. But practically meaning, this will just make it so I hope you're ready that phantoms are going to become your new best friend unless you're in a multiplayer world where multiplayer sleep is available and where someone else can sleep for you. But then again, you might be better off being in the nighttime because you're not given weakness, nor do you burn up in the sky when you attempt to go outside. Side note, I really like the message you get given when you attempt to sleep in a bed at night time. You're an upper moon, you have a lot of humans to kill. Pretty much telling you that no, screw you, you don't get to sleep, you got people to kill. Anyway, moving into your next ability, you've got Carnivore. Your diet is restricted to meat and you cannot eat vegetables of any sort whatsoever. I mean, I'm 99.9% sure you already understand what this means. Vegetables are off limits, you can eat meat, and that's about it. Which, honestly, I feel like these type of abilities are getting boring now. It's like, oh, you can't eat these meats at all. Like, why not do something different? Like, let's say you can only eat meat to benefit you, but if you eat something like vegetables, you get poisoned or some form of disability that you gain when you eat the wrong types of foods, instead of just say, nah, you can't eat that whatsoever, because ultimately I feel like it'd get wasted half the time. But hey, moving to the next ability, we've got Strong Punch. When fighting with your bare hands, your punches will deal extra damage to enemies with flesh. So this counts mobs with flesh. Going off of from what I know, this will not count with the skeletons, will not count normal skeletons, and as well as a collection of potentially of other ones, maybe potentially something like the Blaze or other things like that, because I don't think they exactly have flesh of sorts. But practically speaking, you do slightly extra damage. Normally skeletons and zombies have roughly the same amount of health and defense, but it takes 5 hits to kill a skeleton and 4 hits to kill a zombie. It takes 3 critical hits on a zombie to kill it and 4 critical hits on a skeleton to kill it. Practically speaking, you just get to kill it in one shorter hit on average than normal. Moving into your next ability, you've got Dark Vision. Your eyes have adapted to the darkness of the night, giving you clear dark vision. I'm gonna have to turn my shaders on for this one, because you can't exactly see these type of effects at nighttime with shaders on, because shaders just give you the nighttime regardless of what you're using. But yeah, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's bootleg night vision. Anyhow, moving into your next ability, you've got Demon Blood. Your blood is different to those inferior humans. Your wither, hunger, and poison does not affect you whatsoever. I mean, yet again, another ability that tells you exactly what it does on the tin. You just don't take wither or poison or hunger whatsoever. They don't affect you, but you still take damage from the mobs who give those. But hey, it's pretty useful to not have to worry about those debuffs in general, is it not? Anyhow, moving to the next ability, you've got Siphoning Strike. Practically speaking, whenever you hit a mob or hit anything whatsoever, you will heal yourself at the same time. This ability is on a very, very short cooldown of roughly 5-6 seconds in total, and then once that cools back down, you can Siphon hit again. And practically speaking, every time you do a Siphon hit, you'll get around 2 hearts back of health fully, and that's about it. Ultimately speaking, that will probably get wiped back out pretty quickly if you're in a melee fight with anyone, so ultimately this ability isn't exactly noticeably useful, but hey, it's there. Anyhow, moving into the next ability, you've got Hearts. You have 5 more hearts than the average Minecraft player. I mean, this does seem a bit of an overpowered thing, giving you a few extra hearts, but hey, when you spawn in the sun, those extra hearts are going to be absolutely necessary to hope and pray that you'll get undercover before you burn to death or you find some water. So, I mean, these extra 5 hearts are pretty handy when you're spawning in the day, you know? Moving into the next ability, you've got Strong Arms. You're strong enough to break natural stones without using a pickaxe whatsoever. Now, whilst this is a cool ability, it's about as annoying as what you'd think it'd be. You'd still get the item on drop, but it takes just as long as what it normally would with a hand. Unlike with the Bedrockian Origin, which actually increases speed that you can mine by hand to correlate with the fact that you can now mine stone by hand. Origins. In this video I'm going to be showcasing the Ashen One Origin created by Arin Kaiyub in the Origins Discord server. This creator has taken part in creating the origin known as the Time One, which I showcased around a few months ago. This origin is available both on 1.16 as well as 1.17, both data packs of which will be linked in the description down below for you to go download for yourselves. But let's run through the description. Now first off, this origin was originally based off of something from Dark Souls, but slowly became its own original idea. The Ashen One is a 2-impact origin, meaning it does change some things about the Minecraft game itself, but not too drastically. Running through the description itself, at some point in time, the Ashen One had attempted to link the fire. They were not powerful enough, but instead were burnt to an ash by the flames. Sometime later, the Ashen One emerged from their grave and set out to leave their tomb. But before we get started, a lot of you guys tend to binge watch a lot of my content. There's a lot of people who do that. I haven't exactly subscribed yet. Now I know it is a lot for someone to ask you to subscribe to their channel, but there's a lot of you guys who just watch my channel, and I highly appreciate if even a few of you guys subscribe. It doesn't change much for you, but it does a lot for me. Either way, make sure to like the video too, and let's get into the video. So going into our abilities, we first off got Charred Flesh. You can't regenerate even when you're fully saturated. When you can only regenerate when you're near campfires or in basalt deltas. So when you're on traveling all alone, you want to make sure you have a handful of campfires in amongst your inventory. Not just one, not just two, but a couple, maybe a stack even, because you never know how many you're going to need to place down when you're in the middle of a battle because you moved too far away from the last one. Or maybe when they potentially get unlit, because you know, that's also possible. Or if you're just moving around the nether, you can just heal in probably, I feel like, has become the most common nether biome. In fact, I think 9 times out of 10 of the many different Minecraft worlds that I've created since 1.16, a majority of them have had the first portal I made near spawn in a basalt delta. So I guess you can just go sit in the nether for a bit and do a bit of healing, and then come back to the overworld and then fight whatever was hurting you in the first place. Meaning you just got to be a lot more careful because you don't have natural regeneration unless these conditions are met. Natural regeneration is about as normal as it is when you are actually meeting these conditions, but these conditions require your campfire to be nearby or just be in a basalt delta. I honestly don't know what the actual connection with this is, considering the fact that it's charred flesh, right? Then why not does fire and lava not meant to do this either? Because that would continue to account for the same thing as what a campfire would do or what a basalt delta would do. I know that's a bit of criticism from me. Moving on to the next ability though. Moving to your next ability, you've got the Estus. You restore your Estus by being near the campfire. By using your primary ability, you can use your Ethridge to heal by 4 hearts. So this is your primary ability, which is a healing ability. And I do remember saying a couple of videos ago where if another origin had something quite similar to this, is whenever you get given any form of healing ability, you typically lose your normal natural regeneration. And hey presto, the theme's common here. Not a dig at any Origins creator at all, it's just literally a common thing I see. But this is where the remnants of like the Dark Soul theming comes back here, is where bonfires in Dark Souls is kind of your checkpoint point, so being the thing that also restores your core ability, which allows you to heal yourself, is pretty logical when it comes down to the whole Dark Souls theme. This also takes probably around 30 seconds to a minute of being around a campfire to become a full bar thing. It restores a bar like every 5 to 10 seconds. It's a little bit on the random side. Sometimes I can do it quicker, sometimes it will take a little bit longer, but roughly 5 to 10 seconds it takes for each bar. It's a bit on the little odd side there. But then its ability will heal you by 4 hearts, which is another way, just a little bit of an advantage to have when you're not near a campfire or any form of basalt delta at all, so you can at least heal yourself when you're in a bit of a sticky situation and you fail to bring any form of campfires with you. This ability will slow you down when you use it, but you also have 7 uses of the ability before you need to actually go back to a campfire and refill it back to the top again. But the bar doesn't need to be full for you to actually use the ability either, so pretty useful information to know there too. Running to the next ability, we've got Ash Grave. You can set your respawn near a campfire by right clicking on it while sneaking with an empty hand near the campfire. You can also upgrade your campfire by putting an anchor respawn underneath it. After that, you'll have 70% chance to get your items back after death. You will need to reset your spawn point for this too. So let's break down how this works. When you go to right click near a campfire the first time when it has no respawn anchor underneath it, when you do it successfully, it will say bonfire lit on the cross of your screen. Like, it'll pop up, it's a big ass message, you will not be able to miss it. When you do the exact same thing, but when there's a respawn anchor underneath it, by the way, you need to make sure you redo this when you add a respawn anchor, even after you've already lit your bonfire. You need to do it again, get the same bonfire lit message, but you'll also get the added message of soul bonded. This ability is very interesting in how it actually functions. This actually puts your normal spawn point right back at that point permanently until that campfire gets broken. It's a bit of a weird mechanic on its own just there. But when you add in the whole 70% chance of getting your items back, it's even weirder in how it functions. First off, whenever you die, regardless of however you die, it will always give you the death message of you fell out of your world. You're no longer going to have normal death messages once you set your spawn point at a campfire, just a very bit of information that you probably want to know, but you probably don't also care about at the same time. So you might not know what you die to if you forget about it, kind of thing. But the second thing is that with a 70% chance, how it actually functions is it teleports you back to where your spawn point is going to be right as you would die. Meaning that if when you die, your items will drop out in the area that you're going to respawn at, meaning that when you respawn, you'll pick them back up immediately. So you'll know when this ability has been activated before you respawn by telling you where you actually died. When you die, if you see yourself being teleported back to where your campfire is and where you set your spawn last, you know the ability worked and that you're going to get your items back immediately. If you don't see yourself get teleported and you just die in the one area, you know that you're going to have to go and fetch those items to get them back. Pretty useful information to know that, and it's pretty interesting how this works. Like, it's actually really intriguing that they've put it together so that you get immediately teleported on the very frame of death to the area and then it kills you. I'm just going to assume that it briefly heals you again, teleports you to the new area, and then slash kills you. But speaking of being soul bound, let's go into the next ability, which is called exactly that. Upon binding your soul with a campfire, which you require a spawn anchor underneath the actual campfire in order to do this, by pressing your secondary power key, you can return to it at any time by pressing it again. While soul binded, you will actually emit ash particles off of your Minecraft character, and using your pick block button, which is your middle mouse button for most normal unless you've changed it, while you're sneaking will actually unsoul bind you. This will also disable the other ability of having a 70% chance of getting your items back when you die. So the most important thing to keep in mind when it comes down to using this ability is, first off, you want to make sure that you press your secondary key when you're right next to the campfire that you just soul binded to. Secondly, when you use this ability and teleport back to this campfire, you need to make sure you press your secondary key again while sitting at that campfire, because it resets and you lose your teleportation point after you use it once. That is something big to keep in mind. So if you move away again after using it once and you didn't press your secondary key again to rebind it, you will not have the ability to teleport back to the campfire. So it's very important you just keep in mind that you need to make sure that you use this bonding to teleport back and then reset it every time you're near your campfire. This will work across dimensions, this will work across thousands upon thousands of blocks. It will TP you back to your campfire regardless of the situation, as long as you made sure to bind beforehand and you never unbinded it. Running into our next ability, you've got Ember Collector. You can use fire charges to gain extra health. Yes, you heard that correctly. You can use fire charges to give yourself some extra hearts. One fire charge will equal 8 minutes and 20 seconds of absorption, which gives you 4 extra hearts. This cannot stack with other fire charge uses, nor can it stack with the enchanted golden apple or a normal golden apple. Instead, it will just replace it whichever one has got the better absorption for the longer period of time. For example, if you use an enchanted golden apple, you'll be given the absorption of 8 different hearts, but it will only last 2 minutes instead of the absorption of 4 new hearts that last 8 minutes. The ability also has a 1 minute cooldown, so don't think you can spam this in the middle of combat unless your combat somehow lasts longer than a minute after you use this ability. You'll also get given a brief moment of regeneration as well for like 5 seconds after you use your fire charge, pretty much meaning that you want to make sure that you have a collection of fire charges on you, especially if you're thinking about going into any form of battle. Moving into your next ability, you have Restless. After being dead for so long, you can no longer rest. What, did you think you'd be able to still use a bed considering the fact that you can now set your spawn point at a campfire? I think not. You can only use the campfire now. What's a house? I don't think you're going to be building one because you just need a campfire for your respawn point, and you don't want one of them inside. I mean, you can have it at a chimney. You can do that. That's a possibility. But yeah, you can't rest, nor can you set your spawn at a bed. Moving on to the next ability, we've got Ashen Home. In the Basalt Deltas, you absorb all the ash around you, making you stronger and faster. So whilst roaming around in Basalt Deltas, you'll get jump boost to speed, strength, resistance, and regeneration permanently on you while you're in this biome. The regeneration is already one that I've talked about already, as it comes to replace your natural regeneration, but the rest of your abilities come in to add in with this, with your jump boost, speed, strength, and resistance added in. So essentially speaking, when you're in the Nether, the Basalt Deltas is literally the best biome that you want to be in, because, well, you get so many benefits out of it and almost no disadvantages aside from the weird and wacky terrain that biome produces. Either way, that is that origin. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments down below. As always, a massive thank thank you to my channel members, especially my $25 member, Hollow the Void, my $10 member, Decept. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, and until next time, guys, goodbye.